It just confused me when he said seated. I'm like, we don't use seated anymore.
It took me a long time because I was here when it switched over, and then it took me a long time to not say that. And
Yeah, I just wanted to
others-
make sure there wasn't still seated in place.
No.
And I thought, because in 2016, they eliminated all that, put it under LIT.
yes,
And then we make subcategories LIT for like economic development and
yeah,
jail and stuff
It was
like that.
just-
Public safety.
Public safety, yeah.
And correctional facilities.
Yeah, so I thought,
Yeah.
but when he called it being paid from seated, I thought, okay, well.
no, you were on the right track. It was
Okay.
just a
Well, I want to make sure I wasn't. I was like,
verbiage thing. No, I get it. It's really confusing. All right, we are on and ready whenever you are.
Okay,
Don't forget your mics.
It's on.
mic's on. Call this meeting to order, DeKalb County Commissioners. The date is March 13th, 2023. Morning, Dottie.
Good morning. Hey, have, just a couple things, since I haven't seen you guys for a few weeks, but on our hiring front, and the sheriff might be able to tell you a little bit more, but we have two of the merit officers in the pipeline, which is good. And confinement, we have really two in the pipeline. They really need about 4 more officers. We just had one turn in his resignation. You know how that all goes. 2 steps forward, 1 step back. But definitely on the upswing when it comes to hiring over there. Community Corrections still has the part-time position over at Change, but due to the fact that we made the change with the number of hours that the educational requirements, college credit that the person has to have, that was reduced, mainly because of the way that the state has now reduced the number of hours that a substitute teacher has to have to be. So we worked on that. They have some interviews. Residential officer, they had one that transferred to the jail, so good for the jail, bad for community corrections. Hey, it's just how it works. So they have that. The health department, we had an interview last week for one of the environmentalist position. We are still searching for that RN. Let's see, probation hired their probation officer assistant, and that person has started already. Prosecutor's office had a legal secretary leave, and so they have one opening, and they have already interviewed, I believe. Neil had told me that he had one scheduled. So that, hopefully that'll be closed up quickly. The highway department, the posting is still out there, even though we have one that is starting March the 20th. It's actually a rehire who wanted to come back. And Ben, when he left, Ben said to him, if you want to come back, we'd be happy to hire you. He was that quality of an employee. So due to some probably impending retirements, Ben and I still have that posting out to see, what else we get, who else we get. So that's what's going on the recruiting side.
Anything in the surveyor's office?
I haven't heard much. Second in command position that is still open. We've been working on creating a new job description because the current one, first deputy, isn't going to be appropriate. I had an email exchange with Glenn last week. He was asking me what else he needed to do. That has to be fleshed out quite a bit more than what I currently have before it can go to the job classification subcommittee. So far, we have that. Subcommittee hasn't met yet. We do have information back on the maintenance assistant. So WIS came back with the job description for that one for Larry, and Larry's chomping at the bit. Can we please, get that one finalized? We also had, let's see, what else? We have another one that kind of is in the pipeline. So, and the last time council met, the subcommittee was tasked with looking at Todd's suggestion about instead of allowing carryover of PTO to pay it out. So they still are looking into that. I did a big survey with my HR network, cities, counties, and nobody does that who responded. There are an awful lot of convoluted ideas, it's government, that people got back to me in their plans and what they do, and it's like, oh, you've got to be kidding. It would drive Susan and me, our departments, nuts if we had to deal with most of those things. So anyway, they're some crazy ideas, right? I forwarded those to you. Anyway, so...
They're kind of the committee's kind of at a standstill. They're waiting on me because I need to pull some numbers
you were on
together.
vacation.
When you say
so-
convoluted ideas, I assume they come up with some tricky scheme to carry over or pay or...
Oh, yes, and dump it into like a sick bank that could be used if somebody is on short-term disability to help cover that, if they don't have short-term disability. Well, there were just some really odd ones. And then, of course, there is also... I was given some information. If a person, an employee, leaves before a certain date, then there's a percentage of their PTO that they would be paid out. And then if they stayed for another, 3 months, then it would be another, percentages, and also how PTO is calculated. There's some counties and cities that calculate it weekly or, bi-weekly. It's, a half of a day for every, how many hours that you work, and So anyway, we have a lot of information. We just haven't pulled it all together. So
the county used to have a sick bank.
Yes.
And, but it would go for say you had so many unused, but then I'm not a good example. One of my people had a major surgery or something, then they were allowed to tap in and use some of those. So it might not have been their time that they gave up, but you were willing to give up so many days and allow somebody else in the county to use it. That was all before I came,
and before short-term disability.
And I haven't.
Communism to me, I don't know if I like that.
I haven't went back into looking
Yeah, we don't
at
want that back.
Yeah.
We don't want that back. So, So anyway, like Susan said, they're kind of on hold with that.
Okay.
The Apex is moving right along. They are expecting the February claims numbers from Anthem mid-March so that they can get a big time frame of our claims, and then it can go out for bid.
Really?
So we're, moving right along. One of the things that was brought up at a department heads meeting was the employees are unsure, what does it mean to them if we became self-insured? So I reached out to Apex and said, do you have any sort of educational materials that we can pass along to our employees? And they're looking into that with their marketing whatever people. I've also come up with some things that we might be able to get out to our employees, because when you hear self-insured, it is a foreign concept to most of our employees, especially if they didn't work someplace prior, or a spouse doesn't work someplace that they are self-insured, for them to know. So to try to educate the employees a bit, we'll work on that.
I can imagine some of them are thinking that, well, am I going to have to insure myself?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, that was a thought. So, and remember, we had a a potential broker who had come in to do a presentation a couple of years ago, and the idea was, well, give the employees X number of dollars and let them buy it on the marketplace. That, strikes fear into the hearts of an employee who goes, I don't know nothing about this. So, we want to make sure that we, calm people and let them know the pros and the cons. More for cons for us than for the employee, actually.
Are you happy with the communication so far with Apex?
I've been thrilled
Great.
with their communication. They're Johnny on the spot when I ask them questions. In addition to Bill and Shauna that you guys have met, I've already met with a Tyler and a Lauren, and actually Lauren is out of Fort Wayne.
Oh, good.
And so she is available to come up, we can meet. So, and she would be one that we would be talking to a lot, as we go forward. So great meetings, and feeling really, really good about the whole plan, the whole program. So we're doing great. The claims for work comp, we have 5 claims that are currently open. We have 2 former employees who are, if they have any doctor appointments or, needing any treatment for the injury that occurred on our watch, they would be taken care of. One of them is in subrogation. The other one is just still open because it was a back injury, and that could be a little while, depending on how it, back injuries are always very, very difficult. Very difficult. 4 of these are from the sheriff's office. 1 was from Change. So, and we have right now 4 closed incidents. And let's see, 3 of those were from the sheriff's office. 1 was from the highway. So it's always good to have the closed ones. The next work comp. The next safety committee meeting will be March the 17th at 8:30 downstairs in the annex in the basement. So I'm happy to have you guys come. I have quite a few things that we've accomplished in the last, since we met the last time. The CPR training, I will tell you, people signed up left and right for that CPR training. We had 20 people sign up for our March the 2nd opportunity. And then on March the 20th, the sheriff's office has 2 trainings, one in the morning and one at night. And we have 12 employees set up for between the 2. So that's 32 employees that we have trained, that we will have trained on CPR and AED, which is just a great opportunity. And, some of the employees are like, well, I won't have to do it, will I? And it's like, nobody's going to be forced. It's just that, you will have that capability. You will be able to do it. And so if they're ever called into service, we have a list on the intranet. I don't believe anybody has ever gone to the intranet, looked up who's trained for CPR, if they had to do it. But it's
here.
Yeah.
No,
Let
they
me
won't
look.
work.
Who's
Hold on a
here?
second. Don't die yet.
Yeah. Don't die.
You're
We got to
qualifying.
find it. Yeah. Exactly. I know.
I think too, once they have the training, they're going to be less apprehensive
Oh,
about
yeah.
that possibility. I mean, it's like, gee, maybe I could actually save a life,
Right. Yeah. It's more focused now on the chest compressions than the mouth to mouth that it used to be.
Yeah.
It's still available, but those chest compressions, that's what does it. And the AED, just being familiar with it so that the machine can walk you through it. Like I call it, it's idiot proof. It will even tell you not to shock somebody.
Yeah.
About
half a century ago, when that first come about, I went to classes at the YMCA in Kendallville. And that was quite a deal. It was quite a deal. It was.
I had 2 of my employees attend, and I'm attending next Monday, but we already have the mouth protectors
Yeah.
ordered and to come in just so that we're ready and if needed.
Yeah, just in case. So, yeah, great. Let's see. I sent you an email on Friday regarding a phone call that I had received from the Red Cross volunteer who deals with recovery case management. And he wouldn't tell me which township trustee it was that he had encountered, mainly because he would like to have a good relationship with that township trustee going forward, and didn't want the person to get into trouble, but wanted to bring to your attention so that if you had a way of imparting upon the township trustees what they're supposed to be doing, the good that they are supposed to be doing for, the people who reside in their area. And so I think, he just wanted me to let you know and didn't really want to report back. But if you guys have anything, I'd be happy to, and you have his email, so you could get in touch with him too.
I used to be on the advisory boards of Union Township. So it's pretty cut and dry what they do. I didn't see what the problem really was, other than it looks like he just didn't want to engage with them and help out in that situation, right?
Yeah.
Seemed to be kind of a,
Yeah.
I don't want to deal with this.
Well, that's not untypical.
Yeah, yeah. We were very active on Union Township, though. I mean, we made appointments, saw people, helped them out, and so I'd like to hear both sides of the story, I guess, before I'd make a judgment.
I did send, didn't know if you already did, but I did forward that on to Rick Ring also, because I know he has some interaction with his position. So he is aware also.
Yeah,
It's being addressed.
yeah, good.
Wonderful. Yay. The only other thing that I have on my agenda is a few weeks ago, Susan informed me that you had passed the know before policy. And it was during the time, we had a day off, and then you guys met in the evening, and then I was gone last week, and so didn't have a chance to really get back to you about it. I know that you guys trust me to look out for, all avenues, how things are going to affect things and the dominoes that fall. And so I had some concerns about putting this in the employee handbook. The know before training is wonderful, and the state is using it. Just about anyone who is anyone in government is now using know before, mainly because the Office of Technology has made it free to all of us, which is wonderful. But down the road, what happens if the name changes or something, we go to a different system? It's the same philosophy that I have about not putting in the name of the health insurance or the name of our voluntary insurances. So that one is just kind of, one of those topics that that it's better to leave the name out and just, call it a computer training that has been approved by the county, commissioners, blah, blah, blah. But then the other thing is, we have in there about state employees. And we have, I don't know how far that you guys want to push this, but, we have had, speaking of pushback from the courts specifically about their employees not taking this. We have been told that they take training at the state level, but of course, Jack has never been informed of, what they do, any certificates or anything. And I talked to Andrew about this, and, you know, sometimes it's best to get down to the personal sort of thing, like Mike's going to talk to a judge about years of service awards that I have a feeling that the reason that the judge is not going to do it is because his people are not county employees, as he states. And so Andrew has graciously said that, volunteered really to talk to one of the judges about how can we feel more comfortable about those employees who are on the third floor taking the training. I would even be open to if they took the state's know before training and gave us a certificate. I think that would satisfy Jack. Sort of the same situation that we had during when council had required all department heads to provide a job or a performance evaluation on all employees prior to January 1 to get their new wages for 2023. We compromised with the courts, and as long as the judges gave me an email that they had actually done performance evaluations on each of their employees and that the performance evaluation is in the judge's file, council agreed that they would take that and those court employees would get their new wages for 2023. So, you know, the compromise kind of thing. I wanted to come to you to find out just how far we need to push this. Do we just go ahead and do it? And then the third floor says, well, we don't have to do it. And then we end up in a shooting match, and I don't want to be in the middle of it. But, you know, I'm often in the middle of these sorts of things. So wanted to open this up for discussion with you guys.
I've had assurances from one judge that participation is not going to be an issue. So,
I haven't talked to him, so.
Yeah. I have not either. No
And
comment.
I didn't want to talk to him until we had this
Yes,
discussion
exactly.
here.
Yep, we didn't.
I just,
we can, I'll talk to you.
okay.
I'll fill you in.
That would be wonderful, yeah. Because I would really like for the, you know, I mean, not all policies are, you know, touchy-feely, hunky-dory, but, you know, it would be one less pushing that, yeah, Jack needs to do. And it's not so much me, it's more Jack and his department that has to deal with that. And then there's also the way that we, that the policy was written. It says, you know, it talks about employees and all persons working, and perhaps it would be more important to have something instead about the actual users of the data of DeKalb County. We have, you know, there's very little teeth to the to this. I mean, it says maybe subject to progressive discipline if the person doesn't take the training. If the department head doesn't really, you know, push, doesn't encourage, doesn't, you know, care about it, who's the person who's going to do the progressive discipline? Is it going to be me? Is it going to be you? And, you know, once again, we're going to get into, you know, a shooting match about that. You would hope that we've marketed this and educated our employees and, you know, the department heads, elected and non-elected, that they would feel this is really important. This is our information that we need to protect. And I'd really hate to be the department that accidentally opens up a portal to something and crashes our system.
I'm sure if their own personal data was exposed, and they'd have a totally different concept about it,
Yeah.
opinion.
I didn't get any sense that there was any pushback from the department heads on enforcing this, so.
There's some.
There's some, yes, yes. And so I just kind of wanted to bring this all to your attention. It's a difficult, but I think maybe if we can get Andrew to have some conversations, that would, be good. It would make it, I'm ready to throw it into the employee handbook. I'm ready with an acknowledgement for everything, but I just want to really make sure that this is a good program, a good policy, that we don't end up changing, just a couple years down the road. So, thank you very much. Anybody have any more on that?
I don't think so.
don't.
Anybody, any questions for Dottie or comments?
Whatever that looks like when we're done, we just can't have a lot of wiggle room in this thing because we will not be able to renew our cyber insurance
Yes.
without that compliance.
Right, and I will tell you, I ran the current policy past Kyle Pearson over at Insurance Trustees HILB, and he was very complimentary about us at least having a policy. Actually, his words were, "Thanks for sending this over and happy to help. This is a great policy to put in force from my perspective. The insurance company will know that you are doing everything you can proactively on this, and there are no exclusions or lack of coverage issues." That was one of my concerns. Would there be a little, wiggle room anywhere? The cyber application that Jack filled out was exhaustive, and this policy is a great addition to the work he has done. Susan Sleeper had mentioned to me that there were state employees that may or may not feel the need to comply. He understands, but at least having this policy would give us a leg to stand on should there be any issues. So we're on the right track, and I so appreciate this. I mean, Jack and I have, and I have included myself because sometimes this falls on HR to encourage the employees to take the training because it's, kind of one of those onboarding. They're a captive audience, So anyway, we're on the right track. So
Okay.
that was good to hear from insurance trustees.
Right.
So, yep.
Thank you, Dottie.
Okay. That's all I have. What do you guys have for me?
Anybody? You are cut loose, free to go.
Okay, great. All right, well,
Thank
you
you.
guys know where I am.
Okay, let's do minutes real quick. Get a chance to read the minutes. There was a corrected version, I understand.
And amended. I'll move to approve those.
I wasn't here, but I did,
Arthur,
on that contract, you discussed the contract for the fire equipment.
Oh, yeah, I think they're coming back to talk about that for community corrections.
Yeah.
yeah, she's coming back.
One misspelling in there, says we were gauging, they may be gauging us instead of gouging us. Might want to change it to gauging. Other than that, it was,
I will find
that's
out.
exactly something I would have done too, so.
Yeah.
But other than that,
I will find
I
out.
wasn't here, but I
I'll second.
look complete.
Any other comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries. You want claims done quick?
Sure, yes, that would be great.
Get a chance to read the claims.
Did? Move to approve the claims.
Second.
A motion is second. Comments? I have a couple, actually. The 34190 Logansport State Hospital. I don't have the amount down, but it was quite a bit.
Do you know?
What is that?
Were you with, was it sheriff? Was it community corrections?
34190.
That was sheriff.
That can be anybody.
It was sheriff, I believe. Did you see it? You have any information on that, Sheriff? Oh, okay. All I have is the number, the title.
Who was you said it was Logansport?
Logansport State Hospital.
Care of inmates, $5,130.
So it's just,
Medical.
yeah, medical with
It's just,
inmates at Logansport.
okay.
And then we get some, like, that's kind of like the in and the out. So like we pay it, but then we get a yearly reimbursement. We used to get it back trickling out through the year, but now we get one big lump sum.
Oh, okay, okay.
Why
Back
would they
for
end up
that.
at Logansport, I wonder?
I don't know what Logan's. Brady, do you know
Is it the state
about
mental hospital?
Logansport? Is that the mental? It's a state hospital. Okay,
Ah, okay.
state hospital.
Gotcha.
I got
if
another
that's-
question.
So, and actually, it looks like none of that had to do with Brady. It actually has to do with the probation department.
Probation, okay. 33520, courthouse gas. Total of $6,578. I don't recall a gas bill ever close to that high.
I think we'll have to look at the bill. Is that two Stand Energy?
It was, part was NIPSCO and part it was,
Stan,
Yeah, I think if you look at the bills going through and average them out, I know we buy some up front, and so we get charged for what we buy up front into the market, and that's probably why he's hedging our position.
so this is on out.
Yeah, and I'll clarify, but I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
I saw the same thing, because there was another one for 2,500 to them.
I would have you probably stop by and talk with Leanne. She keeps a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
And
It's a little scary, I saw that.
it's
I mean, our gas stuff.
a lot higher than what it used to be
Than it had been.
since we switched to,
Yeah. Well, you gotta realize too, we were buying gas at $2.51, and then we went unhedged, or we were unhedged then. Gas exceeded $9 to $10, and now we're buying it in the 4 to 4.5 range, I believe.
Okay. All right.
Take a look at that.
okay.
Any other comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same. Motion carries. Sheriff Thomas.
Morning.
Morning, Sheriff.
Did you turn your mic on? Thank you, sir.
If I could take just a minute and recognize the loss that DeKalb County suffered about 10 days ago. Master Trooper Bailey with Indiana State Police was struck and killed by a vehicle on the interstate. A tragic day. Many accidents on the interstate already, and very possibly saved the life of many other people. Just wanted to acknowledge that and make it never be forgotten. I can comment about our personnel matters that came up a little bit earlier. We did start the year down 7 merit deputies. We've hired 3 merit deputies up to this point. We're currently in a hiring process now. Our testing was scheduled for this last a couple days ago, Saturday. We had to, due to the funeral of Master Trooper Bailey, we postponed that till this coming weekend. We had 22 applicants for this process. So looking to hire a few more. Hopefully we can get a couple out of that.
Wow, that's great.
So yes, cautiously optimistic about that. What I'm scheduled to speak about this morning is an elevator project at the jail. This might sound familiar to the commissioners. When I took office in January, I was informed about this elevator project that had not yet been completed. After doing some research, I noticed in 2019, an elevator modernization was recognized as a need at the jail. It was on the 5-year budget at that time, estimated at about $50,000. In 2020, the amount increased to $80,000, and that was appropriated into the budget for those repairs, plus about $4,000 in upgrades that needed to be done to the facility to accommodate those repairs or modernization. In 2021, an updated contract was received from Otis, the contractor, for $109,000. In 2022, an updated contract was received that was $109,000 also, with an additional almost $5,000 for an operator for the elevator during this time period. It's estimated to take about 4 to 6 weeks to complete the modernization that's recommended on the elevator. So this almost $5,000 is to have someone intermittently operate the elevator throughout the day, 4 days a week, to help us accommodate getting meals upstairs. In February of this year, I got an updated contract for these repairs. The contract I received was $119,000, with still roughly $5,000 towards these upgrades that we need to accommodate the modernization of the elevator. Like I said, it's estimated to last about 4 to 6 weeks for these repairs. Given the circumstances with the elevator and it being appropriated in the budget a few years ago, wanted to speak with the commissioners about the contract. One of the changes that I propose to make is not having the elevator operator on site, which would reduce the amount by about $5,000. So even though the overall estimation did increase, we can reduce that by $5,000, effectively not making it significantly more this year. I think we can make accommodations to not use that elevator operator. They can only be there 4 days a week anyway, and only during 2 of our meals out of the 3. So we have to make other arrangements to accomplish getting meals to the second floor anyway. So once we put those practices into place, I think it would make sense to do that for all the meals every day. If they could do it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week throughout the completion, that'd be a different thing. So it's not the case. We have to accommodate it anyway. So I think that would be practical for us. So given all these changes and the time lapse in receiving the contracts, thought it would be a good idea to speak with the commissioners, given the substantial size of the project, and the fact that it's an upgrade to a county facility. I spoke with the auditor and thought sounds like it might be a good idea for the commissioners to sign the contract for this.
Comments?
What are they going to do the same type of renovation that they're speaking about for our elevator here? Is a new hydraulic lift system, the whole bit, control panel, doors?
It sounds like that. From what I understand, that's why I tried to refer to it as a modernization. When the guy came, he asked if everything's working okay. I said, well, it goes up and down every day still. But does it need these things? It's hard to tell. He's tried to educate us as best as possible. What he told me was elevators typically need a modernization every roughly 15 years or so. He said this one's far beyond that, so we've gone a couple of those cycles. So we got through to this point. And many of the technology and things inside were outdated. So if there's any issues with the elevator, it needs repairs, it could spring on us later today. And then it could be many weeks before they can get these parts and get it scheduled. And it'll take a little while. Even if we sign the contract today and I get it back to them, they can't even start the schedule of work until October or November of this year. And
Same old story.
yeah. And I don't even put a lot of confidence into that. So we'll see.
What I was wondering is if we're 5 years away from doing a jail if we wait for the bonds to expire. It's a lot of money, $120,000, but it's something you gotta have. So I'm just wondering, is there a rebuild kit or something we could do on the main parts of it to keep it going? That's 20 grand instead of 120? Or is it, like you said, is it just not repairable what's there? I don't know. I'd like to have a further discussion with them to say, how do you drag another 5 years out of this guy's? Or is it just unfeasible?
My understanding from looking at that previously, because we talked about this a year and a half ago, there's no in-between on it.
Isn't there?
It's either do it or
Cross your
take a
fingers.
chance on
Okay.
on walking the meals up by hand every,
That would be my understanding also, because I think once they get into it, due to permits and what requirements at that point, that they're required to upgrade it to a certain level.
yeah, just safety
Per code.
requirements, yeah.
I see on the list they was going to reface the door, the stainless steel on the door. Do you think that is something that's necessary to have done?
What was it called, what was it referred to as?
It was a stainless steel facing on both sides of, on the door, on the inside, I believe.
I think that was for ours. That was for this elevator. Was that elevator
Yeah.
also? Oh,
Yeah, it's on
okay.
the list here.
Yeah, I wouldn't think that'd be necessary for,
Yeah, I believe it's stainless steel now.
Yeah, right.
I don't know exactly what that means they're going to do to it. So.
There's a panel on there, they would retain the door, use the same door, but they'd repanel with that stainless steel facing, is how I understood it. I didn't know if that was something we could leave off or not, but depends what the condition is, I suppose. I mean, if it's going to function without replacing it, maybe it's not necessary to replace it.
Yeah.
It's more aesthetics,
Yeah,
you know.
some of that stuff is required for certification, and some of it may not be, so.
Yeah. I do see there was a clause in there for remobilization, $2,500. So once they get in there, we want to make sure there's no reason that they have to pull out. That would really cause them to have to pull out because it's $2,500 to come back.
I believe I failed to mention, maybe Susan can answer this, but there's already $130,000 still in that budget account for this. So it is in there.
Yeah.
Waiting, it has been for a few years, waiting for it to be done.
I reviewed the contract. I see it mentions an Otis maintenance agreement, but sometimes it wasn't attached, but I assume maybe that's some sort of a ongoing maintenance. Did they talk to you about that at all? Or?
It was not discussed.
Okay.
I believe that's probably something we currently have.
Okay. Yeah, I couldn't read that because it wasn't with it, and that's not unusual sometimes when, you get a contract to see, they don't give you all the attachments too. I looked in and I saw, really I didn't have any other problems with it. It didn't say there was braille on the push button assemblies, but I assumed they would, hopefully they would put that in there. There wasn't like a noise when it reached the floor. There'll be a bell ring or something to let people know that are maybe sight impaired. I just had I guess it's not a legal issue, but just a practical thought. Maybe Larry or Clint has dealt with the elevators here enough. They might be able to look at the contract and see if it contains stuff that, because, I don't deal with elevators
Right,
per se,
right.
so I'm not an engineer. But I didn't have a problem with the contract overall.
What do you think?
well, it sounds like we do have another 5 years to go, and if that thing breaks down, it's gonna be a real problem. We probably just bite the bullet and get it done.
And we might be lucky if it doesn't break down between
Before
now and
then,
October,
yeah.
November. And that would be, if we don't do it and it breaks down, then we're looking at least 6 months to get it fixed instead of 6 weeks, 4 to 6 weeks. So,
Well, when we talked about it before, we suggested that it get put in the sheriff's budget rather than coming out of commissioner funds. So, looks like that's happened, so I would suggest let's do it.
make a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Any additional comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, the same. Motion carries. Get her done, Sheriff.
Okay, so you're making that motion minus the on-site, like
Right,
Brady suggested?
yes, yes.
Okay, just
Yeah, that
clarifying.
option is,
What do you do, just hook a couple wires together to make it go up, so you just go
well,
down the other 2 wires?
yeah, that's pretty expensive labor too, just to push a
Yeah.
button.
Yeah.
I can tell you, oh, sorry, Brady. I can tell you that, yes, there is a service contract already, that in 2022, that was like $3,371. But I can also tell you in 2022 that we had already spent over $16,000 in repairs for that elevator. In case you wanted to know.
Where they replaced all the fluids and such, the hydraulic,
And that was 8,700.
yeah.
I do have my maintenance person with me. Do you have anything to add, anything that you knew that we discussed?
Wait. Come up. Come sit. You can sit by Brady if you want. Just turn your mic on. Thank you.
You mentioned the doors. I do know they plan on redoing the interior of the cab. The main cab stays, but they basically paint it. Not paint it, but they reupholster it and stuff.
Does that need done for function? I mean, yet other than you guys, I mean, is it
It's not a public elevator, so I think there's a little difference there. It's not like the courthouse elevator.
Is it horrible? I mean, would it work another 5? I mean, if it saves 5 or 10 grand.
I don't think the cosmetics inside the elevator are super important because it's used by the staff and the inmates.
Maybe ask them, hey, what is the refurbish of the interior and the stainless doors cost? Because if it's not a functional item, like Mike said, if it's not required and you're okay with it, knowing that you're gonna have a new jail in 5 to 6 years, it might be better if we can strip out some costs there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So if you check that out, I'd appreciate it.
okay.
Never hurts to ask.
Yeah.
Well, save a little bit of money also. Ken's an electrician by trade, so there's $1,500 in electrical work that was quoted to be done, and Ken will be able to complete those.
Your electrician? Never get a battery across the, or a wrench across the terminal with a ring on, right?
Yeah, it's bad.
Oh,
That
nice.
felt good. Got to the bone. Or-
Hey, Mike. Okay, anything else, Sheriff?
I don't think so. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Have a good day. Stay safe.
Thank you.
I'll email this to you later.
Okay, let's move on and clean up some of this miscellaneous travel. We had a few, not a lot.
Motion to approve travel?
Second.
Motion second, additional comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, same. Motion carries. Travel is approved. The bot award resolution signature.
Okay, let me. Okay, so clear back in January, we had our advertised public hearing. That's when you and Ben as the, not what you're called, bot committee or something like that, that you had approved the recommendation of the BOT. So now we're fast forward to things are happening. So this was the resolution of the actual award of the BOT transfer and other related actions. So in here, they originally just had that it was passed and adopted by the commissioners at a public hearing held on January 9th, which that's true because you did still have that public hearing then. Then I just added, and Andrew approved, that you now signed this on today's date so that we have the date that you guys actually signed the resolution.
As long as it's got when it's approved, I think it, acknowledges legally when that was done.
So would you like me to read it?
Sure.
Okay. Resolution 2023-R-3, Board of Commissioners of DeKalb County awarding build, operate, transfer, transaction, and taking certain other related actions. Whereas pursuant to Resolution Number 2022-R-11, the Board of Commissioners of DeKalb County adopted the provisions of Indiana Code 5-23, which is the BOT statute. Whereas in accordance with the BOT statute, the board issued a request for proposals and qualifications for the development, financing, and construction of a new public works campus project and related infrastructure. As the RFPQ committee proceeded through the process required by the BOT statute in connection with the foregoing requests for proposals and qualifications, the RFPQ committee agreed that the county would enter into certain agreements with the selected developer, including a build, operate, transfer agreement addressing the development, financing, design, and construction of the project. Whereas the development, design, and construction of the project by a developer and the purchase of the completed project by the county collectively constitute the BOT transaction. Whereas following its review of the submitted proposals, the RFPQ committee by letter dated December 2022 recommended that the board award the BOT transaction to the team of GM Development Companies, LLC, and FCI. I think we need to change that date to January 9th. Whereas not fewer than 7 days before the date hereof, and as required by the BOT statute, notice of the public hearing occurring on the date hereof was published in accordance with Indiana Code 5-14-3, and all proposals together with the recommendation letter were made available for inspection and copy in accordance to Indiana Code 5-14-3. Whereas the board now desires to award the BOT transaction to the developer and authorize the execution of the BOT agreement and all other documents necessary or reasonably appropriate to close the BOT transaction, as each is negotiated, finalized, and approved by the president of the board, acting in consultation with the board's legal counsel, municipal advisor, and architect. Accordingly, be it resolved by the Board of Commissioners of DeKalb County as follows. The award pursuant to and in accordance with the BOT statute, the board hereby awards the BOT transaction to the developer and confirms that the BOT agreement shall constitute a BOT agreement under the BOT statute. Document authorization, the board authorizes the authorized individual acting in consultation with the board's legal counsel, municipal advisor, and architect, and on behalf of the county to negotiate, finalize, and execute the transaction documents on behalf of the board. Other actions, the authorized individual and the officers of the board hereby are authorized to take any and all actions, including executing and delivering any documents of certificates that the authorized individual or any such officer deems to be necessary or reasonably appropriate to effect the resolutions set forth herein. Any such actions, including any documents or certificates executed and delivered hereby are ratified, confirmed, and approved. No conflict. All ordinances, resolutions, and ordinances or parts thereof that conflict with the provisions of this resolution hereby are repealed to the extent of such conflict. After the issuance of the BOT agreement and until all BOT lease payments have been paid or prepaid in full and except as expressly provided herein, this resolution shall be repealed or amended, and the board shall not adopt any ordinance or resolution that in any way adversely affects this resolution. Severability. If any section, paragraph, or provision of this resolution is held to be invalid or unenforceable for any reason, then the invalidity or the unenforceability of such section, paragraph, or provision shall not affect any of the remaining provisions of this resolution. Effectiveness. This resolution shall be in full force and effective from and after its passage. Passed and adopted by DeKalb County Commissioners at a public hearing held on January 9th, signed on this 13th day of March 2023.
Resolution number?
2023-R-3.
My signature only,
Everybody.
everybody's. Motion?
Move to approve Resolution 2023-R-3.
Second.
A motion and second. Any additional comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, the same. Motion carries.
Yes.
Yeah.
No fines. For your eating.
Okay, Ann and Stephanie. We'll get you in here a little bit early and,
Mine here,
yes, please.
And
State your name
then,
and address also.
and 45.
okay, wait, 1 second. You're going to want to push the button on the microphone so that that turns blue, please. That's okay.
And 45125 County Road 60, St. Joe, Indiana. Anything else I need to say? Okay.
Nope.
Okay, so I'm going to stick to my notes to stay on task and on time. So if I don't have good eye contact, sorry. Thank you for allowing us to speak today. Our comments today are regarding SB4 and the Governor's Public Health Commission. Although this bill will most likely pass, we wanted to publicly go on record, letting you know that there are multitudes of Hoosiers, including many of your constituents, concerned about how the Governor's Commission could expand its reach and authority, leading our county to lose autonomy over public health decisions. A fundamental principle I'll be addressing is that of the public trust in government institutions and how that trust has been eroded, and why it is so very important to maintain some semblance of local control. I will begin by reviewing the actions of the COVID response from the FDA, NIH, and CDC. We have learned through congressional hearings over the last several weeks that the current administration worked with the FBI and the CIA in conjunction with social media organizations to censor all public narratives that did not support the government narrative. This includes evidence continuing to come out in emails between former head of the NIH, Francis Collins, and Anthony Fauci, making whatever attempts they could to silence discussion around the COVID pandemic. And this is all public record. I'm not making any of this up. Just last week, we heard testimony from former CDC and member of the COVID task force, Dr. Redfield, stating that, quote, more than likely gain-of-function research has probably caused the greatest pandemic that our world has ever seen. In this, it was not only everyday citizens like me who were censored, but well-credentialed doctors, researchers, professors, and scientists from prominent organizations. The significance of this cannot be overstated. Had information on life-saving COVID treatments not been censored or suppressed, potentially hundreds of thousands of lives could have been saved. In addition, had the public been made aware of the vaccine injuries that were taking place, perhaps some of those injuries and deaths could have been avoided. And here I would like to give examples of the behavior of the NIH, CDC, and FDA. In June of 2021, my friend, Bree Dressen, who was injured in the COVID vaccine trials, was flown out by the NIH to Baltimore, Maryland, along with other vaccine injured to be studied by the NIH. They were promised by the NIH that the results would be shared with the general public and with doctors, so that doctors would know that if patients came in presenting adverse events after receiving a vaccination, that the vaccine should be considered as a potential cause and to be ready with any possible treatments. This has never happened, with the exception of mild pericarditis, but only way past the time they knew it was actually happening, and now even currently understating the frequency. There are actually over 700 other signals that have taken place that are greater than myo and pericarditis, again, with the general public knowing nothing about. Not only that, although the NIH knew that having early intervention was the key to helping the vaccine injured, they have kept this information to themselves, leaving the injured languishing in their distress, some left so hopeless they have committed suicide. In addition, you had CDC Deputy Director Tom Shimabukuro telling the public that they were reviewing any injuries. Well, in reality, let me give you an example of Tom's help. Robert Edmonds, a PhD and researcher, was injured by the vaccine and sent to the CDC an extensive volume of data on the issue of not only him, but others who had been affected by this. A CDC employee sent the data to Tom, to which Tom responded, and was gotten by a FOIA request. Thank him for his email and cut him off. That is the help that we can expect from our CDC. In all of this, remember the only narrative we were told by these organizations were that the vaccines were safe and effective. However, now we are even to the point where you have Newsweek publishing articles with the titles How Fauci Fooled America and America's COVID Response Was Based on Lies. And remember how President Biden told us back in 2021 that it was going to be the winter of death for severe illness and death for anyone who was not vaccinated? Now you have doctors writing articles in the Wall Street Journal quoting the Lancet study showing that those who had the vaccine but not COVID were actually more likely to get sick and die than if you were unvaccinated. On top of this, are you aware that it is reported that the FDA receives 75% of its budget from the biopharmaceutical industry? And were you aware that many of the previous FDA commissioners now work for or have worked with those same drug companies or received compensation for the work with them? In fact, just the previous FDA commissioner that we've had, Scott Gottlieb, now works for Pfizer. And that 75% of network TV ad revenue comes from the pharmaceutical industry. The conflict of interest makes these organizations ripe for fraud and have led to devastating consequences. So how does this relate to the Governor's Health Commission? In June of last year, the newly assembled Governor's Health Commission, which should be noted was established by executive order, met and made clear that they had a plan they wanted to implement throughout the state. And if you, the county commissioners, did not agree to that plan, the commission was basically going to show you why you were misguided and coerce you into doing what they would like. This is on film. You can watch it. Last month, I sat in the Senate hearing on SB 4 and heard the members of that same health commission basically say that they never said that. But they did. I was so disappointed in Senator Charbonnet's incredibly rude response to one of the county commissioners speaking, who was opposing the bill. So just disregarded him. Why is all this of a concern? Well, given the makeup of the Governor's Commission, very pro-CDC stance, somebody on the commission actually is with the CDC Foundation, and the fact that the CDC recently gave our state $50.6 million, the commission will most likely be requiring at some point, in order for you to receive or keep funding, that counties will have to follow CDC guidelines, which in the future could mean anything from mask or vaccine mandates, business closures, any other demands they want to make if you want to get that. I understand that everyone's goal is good public health outcomes. This bill may offer some of that, but somehow it must contain language that gives you as commissioners the autonomy to make decisions that are best for our county. You know better than we the influence you have and the lawful parameters you have jurisdiction over. We are asking that you consider whatever power and influence you have to keep our county free from the ever-encroaching state control, which is ultimately federal control, leaving us with no options for choice. In closing, at 12:30 this morning, as I was finishing up some work, I was listening to a live group space filled with vaccine injured telling their heart-wrenching stories. I've listened to thousands. The gentleman hosting the space was actually a military member. You cannot believe what's going on in the military with vaccine injury, as were many in the group. And as a woman was finishing up her just tragic story, she said, "We just want someone to speak up for us. We are so tired of being abandoned." There's no trust left here. There's no trust left in our government health agencies. Our government has turned its back on these folks and really, to some degree, all of us. Please do not let them take control of our county. Thank you.
Morning. My name's Stephanie Ripple. You needed my address.
Please.
7910 Casa Grande Court, Fort Wayne, Indiana.
Casa what?
Casa Grande
Casa Grande.
Court. I'm going to start with a quote from an article in the National Geographic. It says, Jessica McFadden, a 44-year-old fundraising officer in Indiana, chose to get the Johnson & Johnson vaccine in early April because a single shot was more appealing than a 2-dose vaccine. But 1 week after her jab, breathing became increasingly difficult. By late April, a coughing fit required her to lay down to breathe. A CT scan showed a pulmonary embolism, a blood clot wedged in a lung artery. More imaging revealed another clot headed straight to McFadden's heart. The cardiologist told her she needed emergency surgery, adding, "You have 12 hours to live," McFadden recalls. At that point, I had to call my husband and give him a goodbye message. You can read the rest of that story in the article if you'd like. Anne spoke of people languishing without hope because of the failure of government agencies and the way they've handled everything regarding the COVID shots. I want to share with you some information regarding other cases in our state where this is occurring. First, a little background information. From the FDA website, it says the Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System, or VAERS, is a national vaccine safety surveillance program co-monitored by the FDA and the CDC. The purpose of VAERS is to detect possible safety signals, adverse events that occur after the administration of U.S. licensed or authorized vaccines. And then from the Department of Health and Human Services website, it says underreporting is one of the main limitations of passive surveillance systems, including VAERS. The term underreporting refers to the fact that VAERS receives reports for only a small fraction of actual adverse events. We know that correlation doesn't mean causation, but let's use the data for its intended purpose to pick up safety signals, and let us remember that each of these represents many more that will never be reported. So far, there have been 169 Hoosier deaths reported to VAERS after the COVID shots. Some of these reports are of people who have had multiple doses of these shots and died from COVID, the things they were supposed to prevent. Can we really call them effective? There are 947 reports of adverse events in Hoosier children. Overall, VAERS reports are up to over 1.5 million, including more than 34,000 deaths, almost 5,000 miscarriages, more than 64,000 permanently disabled Hoosiers, that's overall, and more than 26,000 cases of myo and pericarditis. Can we really call them safe? I want to read you the details of just a handful of these reports from Hoosiers so you can hear how they're suffering. A 58-year-old woman got the shot this past fall. She had a severe stroke 5 days later. A 33-year-old female got the shot on October 7th in 2022. Between October 11th of that year and the time of her report on November 22nd, she had 3 strokes. A 16-year-old young man got the shot, began having chest pain the same day. 3 days later, he was diagnosed with myocarditis. A 40-year-old man got the second dose at the end of August of 2021. He initially had pain in his shoulder. Within a couple weeks, he couldn't walk unassisted. By the end of September, he couldn't walk at all, could not control his bowels, couldn't swallow food, drink, or medicines. In October, he had various testing done, including an MRI, spinal tap, and EMG. Shortly thereafter, he began having IVIG infusions and continues to need them at the time of his report more than 15 months later. A 44-year-old man got the 4th dose this winter. Less than 3 weeks later, he awoke with right-sided weakness from his foot through his arm, along with some other concerning symptoms. A CT scan showed a tear in his carotid artery and a blood clot. A 64-year-old woman got the 5th dose last fall. A month later, she had 6 blood clots in her left leg from her groin to her ankle. The only program in our country that a person can file claims associated with injury resulting from the COVID shot is called the Countermeasures Injury Compensation Program. As of February 1st of this year, 11,196 claims have been filed in regard to the COVID shot. More than 10,000 of these are still pending review. 543 decisions have been made. Of those, 524 have been denied. 19 of them have been found eligible for compensation in pending benefits determination, but as far as I can tell, none have actually been paid out. It will take years, possibly decades, for the ever-growing number of claims to be processed. And if the trend continues, the majority will be denied. These people who are suffering so much for doing what they believe was the right thing to protect themselves and others are being cast aside. Please, I urge you to do everything in your power to retain autonomy and protect the lives of your constituents. And if you're interested, I have brought copies for each of you of the Indiana reports that I've compiled since I don't know, I've been doing it for a little while, but if you're interested, I can give you a copy.
Could both of you by chance email me your notes so I can get, or hand them to me so I can get good verbiage in the minutes? That's okay. Yeah, just what you spoke about.
Okay.
What is your email address?
I'm going to write it down here for you.
Oh, okay.
There you go. Thank you so much.
Comments, questions, concerns?
Couple comments. I don't understand, or I'm not fully understanding SB4 yet and how we'll, if we participate or don't participate. I know at first they said, well, we're going to give you more latitude. If you participate, we'll let you pick and choose here and there, and that's fine. The biggest problem I have with anything government related when it comes to my health is starting at the federal level. We were lied to completely. I knew it from the beginning that Fauci was a liar. It was very obvious this didn't come from bats. This whole thing, I just laughed when they said, when I started watching this, I said, who believes this stuff? And then now we know that you're 8 to 20 times more likely to get myocarditis from taking the shot versus not taking it. I received COVID, I've had COVID twice. Second time I got it, I called my doctor and I said, hey, I know I have it, took the test, I want that treatment. Can't have it. Haven't been vaccinated and you're not high risk. So for 4 days I suffered. Probably, I don't know if I have heart damage from it now, but I've had 2 friends end up in the hospital from myocarditis after taking the shot. I was told you won't get COVID if you take the shot. You won't spread COVID if you take the shot. It'll help reduce your symptoms if you take, well, all lies. Our children have missed out on a lot of learning. Our children's mental health is a wreck. Work ethic is horrible because everyone has been paid to stay home. And this whole thing, and I get your point. We got to protect ourselves here from the federal. It's really a federal government we have to protect ourselves from. The problem is the state gets in bed with the feds. Feds throw $100 million to the state. The state says, here, county, here's $2 million or 500,000, whatever the number. But you got to do this, this, and this. And you can't buck the CDC because they're always right. That's the thing that would concern me. But I don't know that it's in there. I have to read. One thing in SB4 I found interesting, the very last line was that dental hygienists don't have to talk to doctors now when they do their cleaning. So they always throw stuff like that in there, you know. But here nor there, I believe I've spoke to both of you by email, or at least I know Ann, I've spoke by email. I will be very, very vigilant to make sure if we receive any money, it won't come with strings that we have to follow anything that the CDC says. The mask mandate was horrible. It's just, everything that the Fed did was 100% wrong. So if you have more comment to that, come up here though if you're gonna, because we're on the internet and they have to see the whole thing. So.
Yeah.
The only one comment that I'd like to make is I got COVID in August of 2020. This is before vaccines or whatever, but I'm a mother of 8 children, so I do a whole lot of research. And I mean, they're grown now, but so just wanted to make sure I was up on everything. But when I got it, back then it was like you go and they say, well, you're just write it out, and if you're not better, we'll see you in 2 weeks when you can't breathe. That's basically what happened.
Quarantine.
Yeah, well, and so basically that's what happened. I was 21 days out, and I called the doctor because I'd gone to Ready Med because my doctor wasn't there on Friday when I originally went. And I said, all the research that I'm showing is that if I could get a steroid, I would, this is before we were doing steroids, if I could get steroids, I think I could, because I feel like I'm having problems breathing.
Right.
Wouldn't do it. Called another doctor, Parkview, wouldn't do it. Went into Parkview, and the doctor there, I mean, clearly, he was like, there's no evidence that that this works. Of course, now that's the standard of care. And so I went on to tell him how, based on what had happened with my child 10 years ago, that Parkview now had a keto dietitian because I helped my daughter not have seizures anymore. But at any rate, and he said, well, I will prescribe it for you, not because I think it'll do any good, but I know it won't hurt you. Well, I took that prescription to the Walgreens, took it while it was sitting in the parking lot, and the next day I was already ready. So what would have happened to me had I not been, how many people died because they weren't on the internet and fighting with 3 doctors? This is what the government did to many. So that was just my comment.
Thank you, Ann. Any other comments? Mike?
Oh, yeah. We've been following, we being the IACC board and Region 3 Mayors and Commissioners Caucus board, following SB1 and SB4 very, very closely. And of course, the absolute first litmus test from any of those organizations and also the AIC is that does it erode home rule or local control? And that's our interest in that bill, to make sure that that doesn't happen. There's another round of committee testimony tomorrow, and Commissioner Streeter from Knox County, who's been intimately involved in SB4, is testifying again. So we'll have a conference call after that happens, and I'll probably have a little better handle on where that's all at.
What, you said the AIC, and what was the other?
IACC, Indiana Association of County Commissioners, which I am a board member,
Got it.
and Region 3 Mayors and Commissioners Caucus, which is, I'm also a board member. Yeah.
I just have a question because I don't do your job, so I don't know the answer to this. But in regards to home rule, so could they say eventually, because they're not going to, I mean, they said it in the meeting that they were going to do this there, but they're now, the bill that they say that says it doesn't, but we know that that's the ultimate end. Can they basically say, okay, you don't have to opt into this, but then can they down the road require you to offer services that basically, if you don't take your money, you can't fund? Can they make you offer services and say your county has to do this? And, if you don't take our money, then you have to fund it. Can they do that? Because that's kind of like what they were saying in the meeting.
Not according to the current legislation language. They can't.
Yeah, to the current legislation.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they can
change.
the elections can swing either way, and although it would be political suicide for them to do that.
Well, have you 3 watched the January 22nd, the January 22 meeting of the Governor's Health Commission? Have you seen how they spoke of you? You haven't seen those clips?
I've seen them.
Okay, I'll email you those clips. They're just little clips, like 3 minutes here for me, and you can see how they are respecting you.
My concern is if we grab for this carrot, then it's going to morph into something that we're not going to like down the road. And anything can change. And once they get you on the hook and get you committed and all those strings attached, there's no getting out of it. And then it's like, this thing should have never gotten this far.
Well,
that's not good.
And really the problem...
and the sky could fall next week too, I mean, there's always what if, could be.
Yeah, but...
we have evidence of what happens. The difficulty I think that any lawmaker has is that the general public is just too busy to be aware of this. Right. And that's what some of us are working on. How do we get the constituents aware of this? Because you're going to take heat for, what do you mean you're not taking this funding? Look at all these goodies and you're not going to let us have that. And so if you're not aware of what really is the issue, is just federal control coming in, you know, and it's hard. You guys all have a tough job, and our goal is to try to bring awareness to constituents so that you have an easier job of trying to explain your hard decision sometimes.
A big government has a track record, and if we're blind to that track record, we could be susceptible to anything. I mean, this is what they do. It's not like pie in the sky, Mike. This is what they do. And it's been a history, it goes back a long ways, and it's brought us to this point now. We see on a national level what's going on, and it just keeps morphing down to the states and now to the counties.
Yeah, like I said, I'd like to see the full bill and what it entails and what they're offering us before I make a full judgment, but anything that starts at the Fed is bad.
Well, this isn't, there is no federal
Oh, I
money
know, I'm just saying that the push.
funding this.
I'm talking
Yeah.
like what I'm saying is like COVID. The Fed mandated through the CDC, and if you don't follow CDC guidelines, you're a, you name it, you're a
Well,
racist,
yeah,
you're a
yeah,
whatever.
that's crazy.
And then the state grabbed onto it. Holcomb did us no favors with, we were more relaxed than a lot of states. But there was no favors from our state telling us to wear masks, telling us to do this, shutting down. Well,
Right, I know.
that business is, how does a business, what did they call it? When you have a business that's needed? What-
Essential business.
So we
Yeah.
just basically told 50% of the people, they're not needed,
They're
just
not
don't work anymore. We, you know, I get what Mike's saying that, you know, but we were lied to. This is the biggest transfer of wealth and destruction of our health from our federal government. Our state embraced it too. The state just said, hold on, this isn't right. And they didn't. They grabbed on too, and I was really disappointed.
Commissioner
Destroyed our
Watson.
business.
Yeah, I certainly didn't.
Destroyed our business.
Didn't agree with the governor on that, but all I'm saying is, the IACC represents 92 counties, 3 commissioners in every county, and we are looking at that bill very closely from a commissioner's standpoint.
Commissioner Watson,
Yes.
I mean, I'm sure you're aware that the CDC recently gave us $50.6 million. You don't think that's going to have an impact on what we do in our state?
I'm saying that
I mean, they didn't just give us that
Yeah.
for the fun of it.
yeah,
Yeah, no, that's the carrot.
I know. So to say that, well, there's no money coming from the federal, well, yes, there is. But
Okay.
at any rate, that's
well, I'm not, I'm not here to argue with
right.
you. I'm
Right.
just saying.
I think we can't be naive. Like I think we're all 60 years or older. Well, you're
hey,
not.
watch it.
Yeah, you're not. You're not.
That's all right.
Okay, so these are my peers here.
We can sing happy birthday
You're just
to
a
him.
youngster. No.
Okay.
Man,
Anything else on the subject?
come here to get insulted. No, that's all good.
All good, Mike? All good?
Yeah, that's fine.
All good
Yeah,
here.
keep us abreast, Mike, and what you hear on that.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I've-
got 10 minutes.
We've had a number of meetings with the actual legislators working on this bill. And, everybody's got concerns, it's working its way through. I don't know what the final language. HB 1001 is the companion bill that covers the funding on all of this stuff. And that's had some tweaks. We're trying to get that language changed back to the original language. They changed some of the percentages and so forth. I mean, there's a lot of very qualified people watching this very closely.
And I believe that, and I appreciate that. The only thing that I'm disappointed in is that it has gotten this far. It's made its way through the House, right?
No.
No.
It's passed the Senate.
The
It's flipped-
committee.
It's flipped to the House
Yeah.
now, so
Yeah.
it's in committee hearings again tomorrow on the House side.
A question I have is, what is the, maybe you know this, what is the need for SB4, SB1, whatever, Senate bill or the House version? Are they saying that our health departments are undercapitalized and they want to help? Are they saying that we're not following proper procedure? What is it that they're
Well,
the biggest push for it?
the biggest push is Indiana ranks 41st, I think, in healthcare spending per capita. Some health departments are spending $2 per capita on we're somewhere in the middle, 50. one. So the idea was to push some money up to the health departments to be able to do some things that haven't been able to afford to do.
Did they?
Now, the original Health Commission findings had so many red flags that, everybody was running for the hills, and I think that there was so much pushback and concern among the counties and local health departments that the governor's office finally woke up and decided and realized that wasn't going to fly. It just wasn't going to go anywhere.
The reason why I asked is I'm all for them saying, hey, here's some money to talk to people about diabetes. Here's some to quit smoking, to if alcohol awareness, treatment programs, mental health. I'm all for that.
Yeah.
But if they're talking about more vaccines and more masks and more control and more, you need to educate your people that they need vaccines. And if you don't educate them, because like I said, this is the biggest scam ever pulled on us, and I just want to make sure we don't enter at the local level.
The current legislation, there's no mandates about vaccines or masks or anything else. Everything is up to the discretion of the local health department. And I've had several hours worth of conversation and conference calls with Dr. Souter and Cheryl and the other two nurses there. And in fact, Cheryl just sent me a list of questions. I've got a meeting Wednesday with Dr. Box again, and Cheryl gave me a list of questions that they have on this. And if you guys have questions that you'd like answered, I'm be glad to take those down too.
The comment that I would like to make is, as I said, I understand that everyone's goal is good public health, and this bill may offer some of that, like if it does, help with diabetes or, whatever it is, to find a way to do that. But I believe the language said, and I wish our other partner was here because she knows the bill so well.
Right in front of me.
It talks about being prepared for the next pandemic. Okay.
Right.
And
the one they're going to manufacture.
So, and then you talked about, there's so many qualified people who, are talking about this bill. Well, there are a lot of qualified people so-called qualified people at the NIH, CDC, and FDA, namely Francis Collins and Anthony Fauci. I would bet that Dr. Box does not know that my friend Bree Dressen and others were flown out to Maryland in June of 21 to be studied for vaccine injury. I would bet that she probably doesn't know. She knows, I don't want to disrespect her. I'm sure she knows a whole lot more than I do because that's what she does for a living. And so I respect that. But my guess is she doesn't know half of what I know about vaccine injury and what has occurred. And again, especially over the last several weeks with all the congressional hearings, what we have seen come out, it's shocking, but again, we have a news media that is still generally censoring. And so you can come back and say, oh, well, look at all these qualified people that I talked to. Well, how much of the whole story do they know? That's my only caution and my only point. Again, I'm not saying, oh, this is a terrible, as Commissioner Sanderson said, that if we could have funding for some of these other things, that would be great. But what are the strings attached? So, and I honestly do not believe. I mean, Mary, she's on the commissioner's board, and works with the CDC Foundation. Do you think she knows any of this? Probably not. I mean, so that's her. I mean, we all just kind of need to wake up. But anyway,
the qualified people I'm talking about are 276 county commissioners who are watching this bill, and our position is that any bill that tells us your health department has to do this, this, and this is not acceptable.
Okay.
That's
what
the
I'm looking
IACC
for. Okay.
and the AIC and the Mayors and Commissioners, Region 3 Mayors and Commissioners Caucus. That is the position of those organizations.
Well, whatever you guys can do to, keep us free to make some health decisions, we would appreciate it.
not-
We thank you.
Not some, all.
Yes.
Okay, let's wrap it up, and we're time for a break and the
Time for
pledge.
pledging.
Yeah.
Take a break. Mic's off.
All right, thank you.
Mic's on, everybody?
Wax on, Danielson.
Got his off.
Yeah, might be a good idea.
Plug on his.
Static. You guys did that on purpose, didn't you?
What you got, Ben?
Good morning.
Good morning.
I just handed out the prices from the last week's bid for CCMG. So it's the bid tab between Brooks and API, and then our estimate. You can see Brooks was the low bidder for this project. Not by much. But the cost did come in under our estimate. Been seeing that a little bit, what I've been told across the board due to oil prices being down for asphalt, which is surprising, but it's good. So asphalt prices have been relatively a little bit lower, what they're seeing, so. So anyway, I just got that cost for you guys' reference. After reviewing of the bids, like I say, Brooks was a low bid, everything's in a row. And I'd like to make a recommendation that we award the Community Crossings paving project to Brooks Construction.
How are they, I'm showing that they're 1,000 more on the total.
Yeah.
Second page at the bottom, 1.265 versus API at 1.029. I
Yeah.
thought the 9 was the 6, I'm sorry. Yep, you're correct, I'm sorry.
Say what?
Yeah, it's 30,000 less then, right? Or,
30,000.
yeah.
It's really close.
Yeah, that's
I mean,
amazing they're
that's
within that
pathetically
much,
close.
or that close on a $1.25 million bid, or 265.
And this was a joint effort with Auburn as well on their bidding. Brooks was just a hair higher on theirs, but since we're awarding Brooks, Auburn, Troy is here today representing Auburn. But they are gonna plan on awarding theirs to Brooks next week at the Board of Works meeting, so.
Okay.
But we kinda need to award first and then
Yeah.
we'll go on to them.
It needs to be the same company.
Right, right.
Preferably.
Kind of help. Yeah, right.
I move to award the 2023 CCMG to
I will second that.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any additional comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, the same. Motion carries.
Got some documents for you guys to sign here. So the first one I'm gonna send around here is the Form 96 for all three of you to sign. And then the last two here will be just for the president to sign. And then with Susan to attest. The last one here is the contract. I'm gonna have you sign it. And then I'm gonna run this out to Brooks and get it signed. That way I can get that off to NDOT. Then the front one here is the notice of award.
Yep. Bill only there, Mike.
All right.
Right.
And if you want, Susan, I get that contract signed, I can scan you the whole thing, once it's signed, unless you want the partial. The Form 96 will be complete after they sign it, but the contract he's got coming, I gotta have Brooks sign yet.
Okay. Do I need to sign anything?
Not on that one, no, just the contract you get to test below bill.
I will just have you scan me everything.
Okay, I can do that.
Okay, on our way.
Perfect.
All we gotta do is get a spot for those millings.
Yeah.
Well, that's this afternoon, isn't it?
We got a meeting this afternoon on that.
That's right, that's right.
Yep, so hopefully,
What time did we say, 1:30?
1:30.
perfect. Next thing I have, I received a letter from NDOT for our County Road 56, certification that all right-of-way has been cleared. We own all the parcels down through there now, so,
Good.
or at least for our right of way. I'll give this, pass that around to Susan for, she's got a copy of that. And then on the tower, I'm still working on the tower for the highway department. That they're still finalizing the specifications because I reviewed the draft, what they sent, and there's differences between the two towers. So I want to make sure I got the differences corrected and what we need exactly. So I should have those this week, is what they're telling me. So I want to make sure, because like I say, one's quite a bit lower than the other at this point. So I want to make sure that it's very comparable, if not the same.
Right. And you actually in favor of the company that has the lowest,
At this point, I don't see why not.
why not?
I
So-
don't see, from what I can tell, I don't remember the two companies' names, but they're pretty much apples for apples, everything. But there's a little bit of difference in the specifications and what the one company had for towers, or antennas. So, which he needed to get corrected and then have the tower spec updated. So, yeah, at this point, I don't know why we couldn't award to the cheaper of the two.
We'll get that to us and we'll get
I
on.
will, I'll email it off to you as soon as I get
Okay,
what I need from them.
sounds good.
And then the only other update I got is I had a meeting last Friday with Butler, Fairman, and Seifert over the County Road 56 project. And here I just told you how asphalt was going down, but construction costs are going up quite a little bit. So they are revising a construction cost estimate for the 56 project for letting next year. They give me an estimated number, but I can wait till I get the finals from them before I share that with you, but it's gonna be, it's went up. So just a little warning. Yeah, imagine that.
Yeah.
So,
Any additional thoughts on that muck hole as far as how deep we go in there in digging that out and remediating it?
you know, a lot of it, Bill's just gonna depend on the weather this summer, next year. I mean, if we have a dry spring and drier summer, we'll probably be all right. If we have a wet spring and wet summer,
We have to de-water?
may have to anyway. You know, once they, especially if they're planning on going 15-foot deep.
Yeah.
You know, that's from the soil borings and the engineers designed it. I mean,
It's not a actual requirement though, is that right? I mean, we could alter that, if I
to an
remember right.
extent, yes, but you gotta remember NDOT's participating with this, so they've got it, and they've got money involved in it as well, so any alterations we can, if it's gonna save money or something that is unevitable, NDOT will participate in it, but if we all of a sudden just decide to do something we
Well-
don't, we could lose our funding. Yeah.
I thought I remembered it wasn't the funding we would lose, it would be on us if it didn't work out. If there was additional expense on down the road, they would not help us with that.
Most generally, yes. Depending on the construction costs, like with where this is higher, I'm gonna submit a letter requesting for their funds. So anything that goes on during that project, we can request additional funds. But they can deny it, depending on where they're at with their fiscal funds and things. So yeah, that's the option we have, or the thing that we have during that construction, what happens, whether NDOT will participate. But yeah, as far as changing though, I mean, if we want to have them participate in it, we'll have to have an agreement with them.
Right.
Because they
right.
give us I think there's like 7 options if I remember correctly.
There were several. I don't remember the exact number, but there
And
were
we
different
picked
options.
the one that we thought was the most cost effective and that would work, and that NDOT agreed with as well. I remember going through it,
Yeah.
commissioners and the engineer and NDOT.
But something we'd have to have agreed upon beforehand. We can't just go out willy-nilly and make
Oh,
a
yeah.
change. We'd have to have their blessing.
How long is that 15-foot pole lengthwise?
It was almost 1,000 feet, like 960 feet long, 50 foot wide, 15 foot deep.
Cubic foot of muck is that?
I got them numbers back.
Where
at the
does it
shop.
go? Where do we?
They're gonna haul it somewhere. That'd be part of the bid. You'll have to find a
Wow.
spot to dispose of it, and then we gotta find the material to fill it.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's just, that's a lot of
Better put a
material.
lake there and put the road around it?
Just put it on floats, floated over it.
You know, we looked at putting helicoils down through there and bridging a lot of that, and that, excuse me, like, if I remember correctly, like 7 million for that project. And,
that it?
and the Pete added 1.7 at that time. But, you know, we did that in 2019, I think, or 18 or 19, somewhere right in there when we made that amendment. So we applied for this grant in 2017. Yeah, so it might be interesting. I don't know. That's the area, and with Pete and Muck, I mean, there's gamble. I mean,
You never know. You never
and
know.
going that deep, there's going to be water. Just a matter how much.
Water, a lot of times, but isn't there?
Shallower than that, yes.
When they did that underpass at Garrett, didn't they have to do a lot of dewatering there?
I believe there's still pumps.
There's
and
pumps
things.
there still running, I believe.
But on a good note, I started driving piling for Bridge 9 on Thursday.
Good.
So water subsided enough that they could get down in there, and I bet that come up 12 feet down where they was at.
No kidding.
And that rain and stuff. Yeah, it got deep down there. But it
That
went down.
that backs up from Allen County, and it does get deep.
It does.
The log jam,
Yeah.
yeah.
Dude, they've got, there's 18 piling drive out there.
Really?
Well, they started Thursday, so I stayed and watched them drive one
What are those pilings made out of?
deal.
Steel? Good.
They're different lengths. Most of them's 40 footers. The couple in the center was 60 footers. It was driving, so.
Gotta wait.
I forget what gauge steel it is. They're pretty thick and a decent diameter.
When did they estimate that project to be completed?
Supposed to be completed by the 1st of July.
Wow. Be quick work if they do.
Yeah, as long as Mother Nature cooperates with them, they can make some headway. It's just that water comes up and
Big project.
floods that area down where they're at. So. Like I say, but it went down fairly quick, so
Good.
you know, they only lost a couple of days. But they still got cleanup to do. They still got box beams to get broke up and hauled out. They've been working on that as well, so.
How old was that bridge, Ben?
It was rehabbed in the 70s.
70s. Rehabbed.
Rehab, yes, it was widened and rehabbed. So they added beams on the sides. I don't remember all the detail of it, but yeah, it wasn't a complete new bridge in the 70s.
Pretty good service then. I mean, to go 45 years maybe since rehab to,
I think the 77's ringing a bell. If I'm not-
And of course, the pilings that have gone bad were a lot older than that, I'm sure. Those pilings would have been the original, right?
The ones that went bad, yeah, because on the outside edges where they added the beams, they drove steel ones down there,
Yeah.
and you could see those. The wood ones was bad, yeah. Once they knocked that down, you
Oh,
could get
I
a really
bet.
good view of that. Some of them is only about a big around, that's all left of them. Kind of scary. I mean, you think about that, you was driving across that. The guy
expect the
that
bridge to be there when you
guy
drive.
drove his excavator out there, and I kind of questioned it. And, well, when he took the top off, he said, "Now I know why he's questioning that." He said, "I might change my mind if I looked at that a little closer."
Okay.
Anyway, I think that's all I have for you guys today.
Anyone have anything for Ben?
I've got a response, not a particular response back, but a response on the County Road 51 driveway thing. The attorney wants to talk with me by phone in response to my letter. So we'll see what happens. I don't know what they want to say. And they can say whatever they want because I'm not a decision maker, but I can, dialogue with them a little bit to find out where they're coming from or what their legal theory might be on stuff. But obviously, I won't agree to anything in particular till my clients tell me what they want, so.
The way I understand it, there's upwards to 4.5 foot of material that would have to be removed from that hill to get sight distance that you're,
Right at 3 foot. The
Okay.
4.5 feet would have to be cut. That's what's going
That's what
to
I
be
mean,
cut to
cut.
get the road
Yeah.
base, to get the road base built.
To
back.
get the
base
road
back
bed, so you have to cut down more so
Yeah,
that you
to
can
get a
build the
good
bed up.
base.
Yeah.
The biggest thing's going to be getting your slopes from your banks, for your ditches, and then your slopes back up into in the properties.
yeah, the existing driveways would be a concern, I would think.
Some of them, yes.
And then you have to dig more of a ditch out on the sides
Right
theoretically.
away issues.
Yeah.
How much would the 45 mile an hour speed limit change that? You have
Not
an idea?
enough. I mean, he needs more than that.
You'd have to go down to 30 or
It
35.
was
No, I
35.
mean, how much would that change, how much it'd have to take out?
I didn't figure that, Bill. You're still gonna be cutting,
Yeah, it's still gonna be, I understand that, but how much?
I didn't.
And because of the ditch is formed right, you know, I mean, if we can take out a foot less and mediate some of that ditch
Might help with
Angle.
the driveways too.
and
If
the
we-
driveways, you know, that would help. But
No one's gonna pay attention to that speed limit, but at least it's posted.
well, and if it becomes, I don't know where we're at on the legislature. Mike, do you know?
It's, well, let me look. It's flipped to the Senate. LTAP is neutral on it at the moment, and I think AIC is neutral on it too. Let me, hang on here. It's being heard tomorrow. Let's see, who's got that? Homeland Security and Transportation Committee is hearing that tomorrow. So I'll see how that, what happens after the hearing, and I can let you know.
Okay. Anything else?
No.
Okay. Thank you, Ben.
I'm just meeting you there at 1:30.
Right. Yeah. Catch you on the way home.
All right, Ben, have a good one.
Okay, I don't know if Ben wants to stay or not, but do you want to, while he's here, do you want to talk about the lighted funding for his highway project?
I think we could. We got some time. Actually, Anton's not until 11:15.
Yeah, I'm going to message him to come sooner. I think Jody already told him to come sooner, but I wasn't sure on that logistics from not being here, so I just added it at 11:30. But if you guys want to, you can talk about it now.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Let's do that. What do we got?
Need money to pay the bill.
When you pay the bill, where are we going to get the money from?
Where's,
Bill is it that we're talking about needs paid?
no, we're talking about the, paying the bond.
The bond,
issue on
okay.
the-
All right, the discussion we had last night.
So you guys received from Rick the email from Jeff
Yes.
Peters and
Okay,
the
now, yeah.
schedule. So as long as I'm understanding it correctly, and you guys can all help me if I'm not, but I believe you need to decide whether you're wanting to, what year term you're wanting to have, whether you're wanting to pay less in interest, but, or more in interest, but have more cash. And that determination is part of what needs to be done so the council knows where to go moving forward.
Exactly.
Basically, the way I understand it is these bonds up to about 10 years are non-callable, right? They're set
Right.
for 10, and then if you do a 15-year, you pay another 0.5% roughly, but you can call it out at year 10.
You can call it year 10.
There seemed to be about $1 million in difference in total interest paid. And it looks like one of the 10-year option took 49% of our taxable, taxes that come in
Of the
for
lighted
that.
tax,
For
yeah.
that light, for that, that facet, whereas the other took what, 36%?
15-year takes 36.5%.
Yeah, so
15-year with a 10-year call takes 36.5%.
then you have to come up with what, 2.6 at year 10, if you want to call it,
2.8.
or
2.8.
I'm generally one for shorter terms, but then again, I don't know what percentage is acceptable of the lighted to pay out. You're at 50% at that point.
I know the 10-year bond, you can't call it, can you prepay principal?
No, you can, you
defease the
can, you can
bond.
set that money aside and defease the bonds,
Still paying.
Still
but
paying,
you can't
can't actually
do
reduce the
anything
principal
early,
in the
no.
meantime.
It's no different than a CD in the bank. You know, the bank can't call you out unless they have a callable feature.
So if we're going to reduce the principal, we've got to do it before we exercise the bond.
I would think so, yes. Correct, Rick?
Your
Are
mic
you
on.
on?
Just wanted to make a couple of things clear is that what the council is going to, I believe, the interest or keeping the total under our $10 million limit is going to work on any of the ones that you choose. The biggest issue for the council is going to be what your desire is as far as the use of your seeded money, because you're going to have less seeded money to do other things with. So that's why we want to make sure we have clear direction from you, which way we want to go.
And seated is the economic development.
Economic
part of the
development
LIT.
money, yes.
It's a
yes.
It's technically lighted economic
Yeah.
development, right? Okay, all right.
But that's one that, since that is money that you use for other things, and there is a budget that we, pass every year, every 2 years for that, we just want to make sure that you understand that one choice is going to give you more money to work with on a yearly basis than the other
Can
choice.
you give me a good example what we might use the lighted money for?
What have you used? You've given
That's
money
your-
to highway.
Yeah,
I
I
just
mean,
gave
just
you.
what would you propose? I mean, what do you see that we would need that money for going forward?
Nothing other than what's on your,
list right
agenda already, or your budget already.
Okay.
So,
didn't know
I
if
mean,
you had an
that's up to
opinion.
you. I mean, you might want it to put something in at the Sunny Meadows, or
Right.
you might
Okay.
have some emergency that would happen here that you might use it for.
But you don't foresee anything big?
No,
that we're-
no, I think.
That's what I'm asking your
the
opinion.
things that I'm thinking about are things that might be in Cume Cap right now.
Okay.
Or what might not be in Cume Cap that has to be done right away.
Okay.
So,
Is there a minimum amount that they write a bond for? I assume there is. Do we know what that is?
I do not know that number, if there is that number. So, I mean, and I don't know how much cash, right offhand, I don't know how much cash you have on hand to, maybe pay some of this down, but you've already paid, you bought the property and other thing. You've got money from the sale of 2 other properties that's going into this project that have already,
Yeah.
been expended.
And there's
I
a
think
mi-
Jeff's-
There's $1,250,000 of ARPA money.
I think Jeff's already included
Yeah,
that in
that's already,
this.
that's
Yeah.
already in the calculations.
He's already taken away what you guys already planned to pay up front.
Is he pretty confident on the 3.5%? I saw he upped it maybe 0.5%. As far as nailing this bond down, times of
You have
essence.
you have the latest information that I've got,
Yeah.
Todd, because I forwarded everything that Jeff sent to us, I forwarded to the 3 of you, through Susan. So-
The 15-year was the 4%.
Right, oh, that's one.
Yeah. The 10-year was the 3.5%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he did tell you in that one memo, and I think it was for that latest one, that it had creeped up
Right.
from our council
council
meeting
meeting.
in February. It had creeped up some
Right.
before they did this, so.
It's gonna creep up more before it starts going the other way. That's why I'm.
Yeah,
I
so
think
that's
we-
why get it as soon,
we need to get it
get it
done.
locked in there while we can get it.
Yeah, definitely.
I kind of like the shorter term, just to get that extra 0.5%. the one thing. I think we can live with the reduction in our seated.
We have gone, not so much with the three of you, but I think we've gone a number of years where no money was spent out of there. Am I not correct, Susan? Or not a large amount was
Not
spent.
a large amount, correct?
You know, it was, we were carrying more forward
Yeah.
every
And
year,
I think we've
so.
cleaned up some issues that we've had, and so we've kind of caught up on some of those expenditures. But, so yeah,
We're not
I'm,
gonna do a highway department every year. I mean, this is a obviously big expenditure that's
Yeah.
gonna be tough on us for a little bit, but I think we can get through at the 49% level.
Yeah.
If we are frugal on other things going forward. I would recommend the 10-year.
For 2022, just in case you want to know, you ended with a balance of $2,099,900, give or take a little. And you spent for the year just a little bit over 1.7.
And I don't have it with me. I'm coming from another meeting, but, what's on their budget for those funds right now?
Right now,
What's in that current budget? Because all that would have been appropriated, so it wouldn't come back to us at all.
yeah, so it would have been, they've done some highway funding, administration, economic development, payments, their normal payments. I'm trying to think what else you guys had. Let me look. They have lease rentals, maintenance for Doc Coleman, gasoline remediation for the highway tanks, EMS agreements.
Was the EMS agreement in there?
Yeah, and it's it looks like year 2 of 5.
Okay, so you're not gonna get a big change there.
that's locked in for 5 years.
Yeah, but it doesn't escalate every year for the 5 years. It's
No.
always the same amount, so you're not gonna get a big difference there,
There's no
so.
surprises.
250,000.
That's looking like a good deal. Every year
Yeah.
gets better.
I don't want to run it for that.
No, everybody
and
I
they
talked to,
had,
and I just got done doing 6 county council association district meetings, and I'm hearing about EMS in every single one of them for a number of reasons,
Yeah.
so.
So the majority of it right now was just on the funding that they give Ben for his department. And then they had money that will be replaced by the ARPA money, so
Okay.
that will help. And they did have some money in for the new highway buildings fund in case they needed that. So, but they didn't send all of that.
No, but
as
it
part
sounds to me
of
like there are
this.
several items that are listed there that are gonna go to highway anyway.
Yes, for the
Maybe
building.
not specifically for their new location,
Yeah,
but for
some was
other
for their new
projects that you
location,
might
and
have.
then each year they do give Ben a nice, a good chunk to help with his operation so that we can fund the highway. But nothing like crazy.
Okay, all right. Well, anyway, that's the information that the council is going to want to, because they are not going to commit more of your funds to this unless you approve it. Again, it's probably the same decision as you were talking about, the interest versus the shorter term in that. And if you think you can live with less money in that fund for the next few years, then I think that is the way to go. So, all right. So if I can just have at least one of you there tomorrow to give us that option. Of course, Susan can, but it'd probably be best that way. If anybody has a question for the commissioners themselves, one of you is there to answer it.
Can I go ahead and, I would like to have you guys do a motion that you want to go that way, just so we have it.
I'd make a motion that we approve the 10-year 3.5%.
I'll second that, but I would not put a 3.5%.
Well, but that's what's been proposed, is whether the lower interest rate
The
option.
lower interest
10-year
rate.
option.
Yeah, 10-year option.
Okay, I have a motion and second. Are there any other comments? Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, same. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Attending tomorrow?
Yes,
You are.
I skipped road school so I could go to the council meeting.
I don't know if I'll make it or not. If I do, I'll be late.
I probably won't be here.
It's gonna be a long one, Bill, so,
Yeah.
if you're around until 11 o'clock, you'll still have time.
And
One
I
of
might be,
those, huh?
and I might be there.
It is going to be a long one.
Okay, all right. What's next? Miscellaneous? Is that all we had on, that's all we had, right? on
Yes,
that-
that's
on
all
that
we had
subject?
for that.
Just for that subject. I think you're,
And then Anton is on his way.
okay, Anton is here.
Oh, wait, he's here. See, look, snuck right in.
Come on up, man, Anton. We might as well get this cleaned up, and then we can finish up the miscellaneous and...
Morning.
Is that on, hun? The
Blue
light?
light.
Okay.
All right, it's on now.
Save our
Good
battery.
job, Rick.
Anton King, DeKalb County Economic Development. I know I presented last week, and I know there were some additional questions. Be happy to kind of recap last week if you'd like, and then open to questions, however you see fit.
I actually understood once was explained that the $10,000 and the $95,000, one came from
Regional partnership.
the regional partnership. And you've just combined the two now, right?
That is correct. That is correct.
What was the reason for combining them? Just,
So historically, with so the regional partnerships come under new leadership, if you will, within the last year plus, and so there's 11 member counties in the Northeast Indiana Regional Partnership, and historically, DeKalb County had been had held all those fee-for-service contracts with the partnership independently. So, for instance, the county held a contract, City of Auburn, Garrett, Butler, et cetera, where the majority of those contract holders have been held by the LEDO, the Local Economic Development Organization, all the respective counties. And so under the new leadership of the regional partnership is more of trying to clarify or clean up some of their administrative processes with the invoicing process, because the regional partnership and the LEDO have the most direct, let's say, contact, dialogue. We work hand in hand on a lot of activity. Again, under new leadership, the preference was to have that contract be with the local economic development organization. So really, it's just to kind of unify or clear up some of that administrative process with that. So that's something that historically, I have brought forward for consideration in the past, but at the time, the county had chosen to continue to maintain that. But again, under the new leadership the regional partnership has really, with the work of the LEDOs and what we call the LEDO Council, the 11 membership LEDOs, have really worked to hone in that fee-for-service contract that we have with the partnership to make sure that the deliverables are clearly identified, that they're going after things that are best for our region from an economic development standpoint. And so again, it's really able to clear that up and streamline that process. But again, moving forward is we continue to dialogue and report on a regular basis. We want to make sure that any concerns that the county has from the on that or things we think the partnership should go after, we're happy to bridge that conversation and make sure that DeKalb County is at the forefront of focus there.
And I think that communication is going to be key if we're going to change the formula for that, to make sure that the regional partnership isn't isolated and understands that what we're looking for at a county level.
Absolutely.
Any other comments? I'll have to say I've had some constituents contact me and not in favor of our participation in this partnership. Their concern is it really a benefit, or is it just if it wasn't partnership didn't exist, would there be any difference? And how do you verify that there would be? I know you throw out, there's a lot of numbers, and I see the numbers, but would they have been any different? There's no way of really knowing, is there?
I think really the key piece that we can focus on is when we're working with our individual communities and the county as a whole to identify what the needs are that leadership provides to us, and then we go after to pursue those opportunities to fill those needs. There's every county, to my knowledge, in Indiana has a local economic development partnership. And when you say partnership, I assume you're talking about the local DeKalb County
Right.
Economic Development Partnership.
Right.
And the goal truly is to create a better economic landscape and make sure that the businesses and small businesses, local entrepreneurs have the ability to be in an environment that is good for them to be successful in creating jobs. Again, historically, when we were started in 06, 07, the primary goal was job creation as an organization, and through that, we've seen numerous amounts of business attraction, bringing business in that are creating above average wage jobs, but also the expansion of our existing business and industry. And with that, I apologize, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but we've worked very hard to be that first point of contact with our business and industry, that if there are any issues that arise, if there are anything that, if they're in jeopardy of losing potential jobs, or they're trying to compete with their other locations, if they're a national type company, that we want to make sure that DeKalb County has the best chance for success. And that's what we focus on. Again, we want to put DeKalb County and all its communities first. In that, we want to work with those businesses to make sure that they have the opportunity to expand their business here, which results in additional job creation, job retention, and also the increase of wages for the citizens of DeKalb County that call those, that their employers, call home. So really, that's the forefront. Making sure that we have desirable, well-paid jobs in DeKalb County. But as we've continued to move in the last recent couple of years, there's a lot of focus on community development in addition to traditional economic development. And with the community development aspect is the amenity type base. Maybe 10 years ago, housing wouldn't have been deemed economic development from a lot of the traditional economic developers in that, but we understand that housing is a key piece in being able to grow the overall community. Again, if we need to attract workforce, for our employers to maintain successful, we need to be able to attract people, and with that, they need a place to live. If people are building homes, it adds to the tax base in DeKalb County and continues to grow that. So we have well-funded programs. So housing's a big focus. Broadband's a big focus. Again, identified particularly through, I think we knew it before COVID, but COVID made it ever present, the need for enhanced broadband accessibility countywide. And through that process, again, housing broadband may not have been traditional economic development focuses 10 years ago, but those are key initiatives that our organization has partnered with, for instance, the county, with you on the broadband initiative with SAN Strategies. And so again, we continue to focus on the needs of our communities that they bring to our attention, and then go after opportunities to best provide solutions for that. So, but very adamant that we do play a key role in growing the economic landscape of DeKalb County, and we'll maintain that our mission is to serve our fee-for-service clients and go after opportunities that you see as needs in the community.
Do you see Starlink as a player possibly on Elon Musk maybe helping us out here in the future? Do you see that rolling out in this area? What's their capacity? How long does it take for him to roll out a county our size?
No, that's a good question. Aside from a few, we'll say, individual users that have like signed up for on their waiting list, I don't know frankly, I don't know what their timeline is on that. We had a conversation probably 6 months ago with a couple of potential Starlink users. And with that, we knew that they were on the waiting list to see what that looks like when it does come online. I think it's definitely another option for broadband. Or I guess that's not broadband per se, that's wireless, but an internet solution. So I don't have a good answer for you, but
The only reason I mentioned that, and I'll let Mike finish, is
go ahead.
I wonder if a county has ever approached Elon Musk as a county and said, hey, we'd like to throw $1 million to get this started, and knowing that they're going to get 2,000, 4,000, 10,000 customers at once, and that we're willing to throw some money into it. You know, we've thrown money at this broadband. My only concern with the broadband is the total cost to run hardwire, whether it's fiber, cable, down 700 miles of roads to go to everyone. And then really you're stuck with maybe one provider, or I don't know if they open that up like they did when they broke up Bell and said, okay, you got to lease your lines to everyone and let, I'm just wondering if there's a better solution such as Starlink, if we could use you, part of our fee for service, to get a hold of Elon Musk and say, hey, we have some money here. Our little money may not be, but it'd be interesting to take a whole county to them and say, our county needs a solution and we're willing to throw some money in the pot to get it going.
that's definitely something that can be explored. And I know from some of that startup cost was like the initial like satellite purchase, if you will, for on the top of your home. I mean, ballpark, I think that I was looking at maybe $500-600 startup cost for Starlink, right?
Right.
So maybe it's setting up a percentage of that, a fund that could help pay for some of that on taking, or that citizens could tap into, or something along those lines. But I mean, it's definitely worth looking into and trying to figure out how that discussion could go. But it never hurts to ask.
Yeah, the way,
We have to look at all the options.
the way I understand it is it's a lower orbit satellite that has much less latency. So it's very usable and the bandwidth's good. It's just something to think about. I know
Absolutely.
that I used to only install Category 6E cable in my house because I wanted the gigabit speed. Well, now they have Wi-Fi mesh systems that for $300, you set 3 of them up in your house and you can go a quarter mile down the road and your Wi-Fi is still working. And I know internet's different, but it seems to me like the wireless solution may be more cost effective and also cover everyone. Versus running fiber down a road that only maybe has 2 houses in a mile. Very expensive at $80,000 a mile to run that, or $100,000 a mile. I'd like to see that pursued, I guess.
Sure.
Is what I'm saying.
Absolutely.
I don't know much about the subject, but it's been brought to my attention that they can run a loop. In other words, instead of going up and down every road, they run a loop and then they zoom up
wireless
to
from there.
towers.
That's already part of the drawing. We've gotten that far with
And that would be a lot less expensive.
the backhaul fiber.
Yeah, backhaul, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I'd really like to see some ideas, since we have quite a bit of investment there and we've committed to it. I'd like to see all possibilities, not just, hey, we're going to go with this.
Yeah, get some
Technology
options.
changes so fast, even when we do decide on something, it'll probably be outdated before we even put it in action. But you have to eventually make a stake. You gotta take a shot eventually. So.
Let me just say that in terms of the value of the partnership overall, there is nobody, there is no position or person in the county that could be that first contact. If the partnership didn't exist and somebody was interested in locating in DeKalb County, who would they call? There isn't anybody that has the knowledge or the expertise to bring a project in and even point it in the right direction. Nobody in DeKalb County government knows how many building sites are available or any statistics on workforce or housing or any of the hundreds of questions that site selectors ask. Anton's organization has that information and can move those things forward. And let me tell you unequivocally that we need DeKalb County, unincorporated DeKalb County, needs an advocate for economic development. If we're ever going to have any success, we need an advocate.
Well, I don't,
And if I may, I'll take you back into history a little bit. In that, in the 80s, we had no one in DeKalb County other than Alan Graber, who was soliciting business for DeKalb County. And he did it only because he wanted to build homes. There was no other business, there was no employee, no other department in any governmental unit in DeKalb County that took care of that kind of thing. So we went and put together the DeKalb Economic Development Corporation so that there was one place where people, like Mike just said, could call that would have that information, because City of Auburn couldn't afford to hire somebody that was totally devoted to that. Garrett, Butler, St. Joe, Corona were all in the same boat. They needed help with having contacts for these businesses that wanted to come to DeKalb County. So that's why this corporation was formed. Now, I will say that over the course of the last 3 weeks, again, I've been all over Indiana right now talking to county councils, and I have been asked many questions about our corporation here. Because, and I used to serve on this board when I worked for the hospital. I represented the hospital. We are unusual of these organizations across the state because we have brought in not just the governmental units, but also private business. I don't know how many individual businesses you have now as part of your group, but they are all paying into his group. So it's now no longer just the governmental units paying into it. So what he does and what his office does is extremely valuable to DeKalb County as a whole. Not only to the rural residents, but also to the city residents and the town residents, which, by the way, are all county residents.
Yes.
So we are of benefit. He is of benefit to our county. So,
Although I'm sure that if there was some hesitation about being part of the partnership, our neighbors in Steuben and Noble and Allen County would have a parade for us because they'd love to take all those phone calls.
We're one of the few areas where people are working together. He's working with Steuben.
Yep.
He's working. He's not only working here in DeKalb County, but he's also doing things with Steuben County and Noble County. I mean, Brightmark is a good example of that. That was a joint venture with Steuben County, Ashley, and DeKalb County. And you and your counterpart up there coordinated most of that. So, I mean, he has definitely shown his benefit.
What's DeKalb County, other than broadband, what's DeKalb County lacking to really, for economic development? What do you see the future, what we need to do?
Housing is the
This is
main.
a housing.
Well, that's everywhere, but how do you get more, okay, let's start with that. How do you get more housing in DeKalb County?
So the housing aspect, and I guess I can say to what we've done and how we're making kind of some inroads on that piece. So kind of the first step was to analyze where do we sit as a housing market. What is the market going to need? What does the market drive? And so in that, again with your assistance from the ARPA funds with the housing strategy, we're able to pay for a collaborative housing strategy of which many community leaders took part of to really understand what it looks like, boots on the ground. And so we got those numbers, what the market is for workforce affordable housing and then market rate housing. So the workforce affordables, the 60 to 80% of the annual median income, market rate is 80% and up. With that, by identifying the various different communities, what their housing market demand need is, but all in all, was, north of, 5,000 plus units total in DeKalb County, then broken down in which categories are. So anyways, we have the data with a 5-year projection. That data has then been given to a number of developers in the region, right? Because again, there's not enough developers solely in DeKalb County to really be able to build out the entirety of that housing market. So then we kind of open that up to get it in front of as many regional developers as we can. One, because we want to put DeKalb County on the map to them, right? They may be focused on Fort Wayne because of the large metro area and the ability to grow and expand there. But hey, DeKalb County, we're the next stop north. And so we want to make them aware of what the housing opportunity is here. So with that, we held a housing symposium where we brought developers in to really break down that data, to understand what that looks like. And then we've continued to put those opportunities in front. If land goes up for a public auction, or if to identify different sites and parcels in the various communities in the county that could be suitable for housing development, right? Do they meet the infrastructure requirements that's going to need to support those types of things? So there's a lot of kind of deep dive into identifying different sites. One of the things with the housing strategy, the initial focus was to find a catalyst site. The problem with a catalyst site in DeKalb County is we don't have a lot of publicly owned or controllable land, right? It's a lot of privately held ground. And so with that, over the last 6-8 months, we've been working with bankers and realtors to identify potential pieces of ground that are suitable for that housing, to see if there's interest from landowners to be able to pursue that housing, and then how does that fit into the greater community that they're either adjacent to or a part of. So again, kind of checking all those boxes. So with that, we're in double digits as far as numbers of housing projects either planned, under construction, in the process of, that we've seen kind of come out of the woodwork. Can we credit all of it to the housing strategy as a whole? We don't know, but that's not our role to play. Our role is to kind of set the table and then see how the free market works and see how developers and home builders move forward. So we believe we're seeing traction in that. But to answer your question, I know there's a lot of setting up there, but really is determining what the market will sustain or can withhold, getting those opportunities in front of developers and home builders, and then setting them up for success, whether that's pairing them with different financial tools, lending opportunities, just really trying to, again, set the table to then let the free market do what it's going to do. And so that's some success that we've seen. Again, projects are in the works there. Another piece is, if you look particularly like downtown Auburn, right? How many downtown buildings do we have that the second floor could be turned into residential, right? And so a lot of those are, conversations that it's hard to kind of just set a blank opportunity and say, hey, we want to meet with all the building owners in downtown as best we can to understand, is there a desire, is there a need, what's that look like? So it's a lot of really kind of one-off conversations with individual building owners and, looping it or working with like the city of Auburn or Auburn Main Street. And when they do like their second, they open the second floors for tours, those types of opportunities. But again, it's just, we're continually just, kind of casting a line out. We're constantly fishing, hoping to get something to bite. But as long as we set that table to where people, one, are aware and are interested and know of the opportunity, then we truly believe that people are going to bite on that and the free market's going to do what it's going to do. So long way of saying that, again, setting the table and then just awareness, making sure that people are aware of what's happening in DeKalb County from a housing growth standpoint, what the opportunities are. And a key piece of that too is also getting the buy-in and support from our local employers that obviously they're trying to attract talent. And again, as I said earlier, You know, they're not, if they don't have homes for their future or current employees to live in, they don't have a good success rate of being able to retain those people or attracting them here. And so getting their support and their buy-in in that process is a key piece. So again, it's all hands on deck, and moving it forward to really build out that housing opportunity. So again, we are seeing some early stage traction on that, and we'll continue to try to get those in front of folks that have the ability, knowledge, and know-how to see some of these housing projects forward.
Like we need to get Alan Graber back and in his three-piece suit on his bulldozer after church on Sunday, you know?
Actually, he is president.
Yeah, you remember that, though. Alan would be out in his three-piece suit on a bulldozer at 3 p.m. on a Sunday, and talk about a worker.
Anton, are you a advocate for tax abatement?
Regarding tax abatement, I think it's on a case-by-case scenario, but tax abatement is a tool that the local municipalities do have to utilize for attracting and retaining and expanding existing business and industry. There's not a lot of tools that local governments have to tap into. Tax abatement is one that they do. So again, depending on, it's all case-by-case basis, but overall tax abatement is a key piece of it's a key incentive that local municipalities can tap into.
It seems to me you bring the businesses in and we turn around, we get them in, we give them all signed up, and then we turn around and give them a tax abatement. That seems counterproductive as far as increasing our tax income. I just, I don't understand that concept. I don't understand how that is a real benefit. We bring the business in and give them an abatement, and somebody else ends up paying the bill.
So to that point, an abatement is an incentive. So it's the but-for test as far as depending on the type of project you're working. Would that project not come but for the tax abatement in that process? As far as that on the attraction standpoint, when you're working with your existing business and industry, particularly companies that have different locations in and around DeKalb County or outside of the county or a different state, those corporations are looking to make an investment in a facility that is basically going to stretch their dollar, right? Is from a corporation standpoint. And again, it's a tool for DeKalb County to be able to put ourselves in a cost benefit scenario that makes that company have the ability to, how do we stack up on paper as far as, for instance, take Continental, for instance, here in Auburn, Connie Tech. It's a publicly traded global company, right? And multiple locations, right? They could have consolidated their facilities in a number of different areas. But how do we stack up DeKalb County, right? So we lean into utilizing the state, the Indiana Economic Development Corporation, tap in with the be able to tap into the college and university network that's housed by the regional partnership to create that talent pool. There's a multitude of different factors that go into a decision making of where that project is going to happen in a multi-location facility. And so again, there's not a lot of tools that we have to utilize on the local level, but tax abatement, the Indiana code says we can, is one of those that municipalities have the opportunity to use. It's a way for DeKalb County to remain attractive, because there's always the thought, well, if we don't do it, or if we could lose it, right? It could go somewhere else. They could go to an adjacent county that may give them a tax abatement. I mean, those are all factors that play in the reality of it. So again, it's a case by case basis, but it is a tool that can be used by local municipalities.
Well, and for instance, Team Quality Services could have set their national headquarters anywhere. They chose Auburn, and the abatement incentive was part of the reason that they're here. Same thing with Creedon Wealth Management. They could be anywhere in the United States and function just as well as they can here. They chose to stay in Auburn, partly because they have ties to Auburn, but also partly because of the abatement situation. And to give up that advantage, and I will argue with you for the next 50 years about somebody else picks up the bill on an abatement. That's just not factual.
It is factual.
Well,
No, if I might,
They may not have a tax increase, but they definitely have a tax decrease if everybody pays their fair share, whatever they owe.
well, let's go away from Team Quality Services and Creedon. Let's take, for instance, one of our manufacturing units. The tax phase-in, which is what it truly is, happens because they're going to buy a piece of equipment that will be added to our assessed valuation that does not currently exist. So if they don't buy that piece of equipment and bring it to here locally, that tax advantage or tax phase-in is never going to happen because it's never going to get on the assessed valuation. And what we're doing is phasing in the tax on that piece of equipment over the course of X number of years. Now, one of the changes that's happened through the state legislature over the last few years is the fact that we're no longer fixed on 5, 8, and 10 years. The county council and the city councils that give tax abatement can now manipulate those numbers however they want. Actually, we can go all the way up to 20 years. That's something that we have chosen not to do. Don't even want to go there, not past 10 years. But we can now give a tax phase-in of, say, 5 years and do it 20% each year, each one of those 5 years. Or we can make it 8, or we can make it 9. But we can adjust it. But that money comes online a little at a time. But if they don't buy that piece of equipment and bring it here, that option never happens. That additional tax revenue is never going to occur. So that's the advantage of tax phase-in. We are getting there. We've got more ways to manipulate it. It's like doing your income taxes. Do you take advantage of every opportunity within the income tax IRS regulations to lessen your tax?
Oh, I pay extra. I don't.
Well, of course you do. We know you do. We know you do. But it is, you take advantage of what's there.
Well,
And that's no longer there, fine. But I'll tell you that our tax rates will probably go down. We'll not know until next month when the actual bill comes out, because we were able to increase our net assessed valuation by 11% over last year.
due to what?
Due to a lot
Inflation?
of inflation is some of it. But now across the state, they're not all looking at having that.
No.
Is that real
Because they're-
property and personal property both? 11%?
That's everything.
Everything?
Everything. But they're not all looking at that right now because some places, their tax bill will stay the same or maybe even go up. Because what's happened is across the state, a lot of different governmental units and schools, and apparently the schools are the bigger issue, have gone into a lot of bonding because they didn't want their rate to go down. They wanted to maintain that, so they went out and bonded a lot. So that is one of the reasons they're trying to manipulate the 1% homeowners credit this year. And what they're doing is, they're going to tweak something that next year they'll have to tweak again because the tweak had unintended consequences, and then they'll tweak and tweak and tweak, and it never stays even so that people can figure out exactly where they're at. That's why I wish they would just leave the tax rates alone this year. Senator Holdman has it set so that there will be a total review of the income of the tax package for Indiana during the summer. And they'll come back and want to make adjustments. They're their big intention is to eliminate the Indiana income tax. They also are talking about eliminating, one of the things they'd like to do is eliminate the income tax,
Really?
the state income tax.
What would they replace that with?
Well,
That's the
that's big
question.
question.
That's
Well, will
why
they
it needs to go to study.
Where's the personal property tax in your vision? I mean, you've been part of.
Well,
Where's this going in the future? Because they talked about eliminating it, but it's
Well,
30% of our.
they have been, and again, that bill is dead.
Okay.
They were going to take it from 80,000 exemption to 250. And that bill is dead. That would have meant only the very, very largest corporations would be paying business personal property. But in Indiana, remember, Indiana never taxes equipment, personal property at 100%.
No, yeah.
It starts at 67% and then has a floor of 30%. So it never can go below 30%, even though it's depreciated every year. It can never go below 30%.
Wouldn't it make,
That was the point I was going to ask you about, is the depreciation on that piece of equipment that was just bought. So while they're forgiven on their tax rate, yeah, it phases in, at the same time, it's depreciating down in value.
Yeah, it does, but it cannot go below 30, and that's different than those states around us that start at 100% of the value and let it depreciate down to zero.
So
We don't do
you're going to
that.
really realize any tax revenue off that piece of equipment till it's down to that 30%.
Oh, I think we do. I think we do. Because
Think of that.
some of that equipment lasts for more than 8 years or 10 years.
Yeah, but we're
whatever.
down to the 30%.
But it's still, we're getting it, and that it works into the calculation as to what your tax rate is.
who sets the
Because
tax
we're
rate?
only able to go up as a governmental unit. We're only able to go up by the annual growth quotient. As a matter of fact, there's a bill in the legislature right now that hopefully fails that says that for the next several years, you can only go 1/2 of the growth quotient in your budget, or a maximum of 3%. So even though your expenses might go up 8% because of inflation, you can only go up 3%. So we're going to be behind the 8 ball again. We need to have that assessed valuation go up. That is the only thing that will save us.
And that's what sets your tax rate, is assessed valuation.
value sets the tax rate.
It's your tax levy, which is your budget, divided by the assessed
Yeah,
valuation.
it's a simple math
and
problem.
That's the tax rate.
I understand it completely. Yeah, I
But
understand the
anyway,
tax rate.
there is value to tax abatement. Is it a good tool to use all the time? Probably not. But there is a purpose for it. And we use what tools we've got. And when they take that tool away from us, we'll have to find something else. That's all there is to it.
Wouldn't it be simpler though, and I know this is a state issue, to have a low rate that everyone pays and no exemptions? You know what I'm saying? Let's just take the rate down.
Well, you
and
know,
that way we're not-
that's essentially where a lot of your personal income in the federal side's
Yeah.
gone.
I mean, it'd
They
just be
keep
nice-
increasing
That way I'm not fighting with Allen County. In other words, if, hey,
Yeah.
we're all the same rate. We're all paying a low rate. It don't matter. You move where the schools are good, where the housing is good. Let us handle what we can handle. But to me, it's a disadvantage to have to compete with other counties by knocking our rate down and robbing Peter to pay Paul. And I do see some advantage to abatements now and then. I'm not completely anti-abatement, but it just seems to me like if we all paid a low rate and it was fixed amongst the counties,
Right.
it would be a more level playing
And
field.
hopefully that is something
And I know it's a state
hopefully that's something that's looked at in this summer study committee.
Yeah. And
I mean,
that's,
Travis Holdman, Senator Holdman has a good idea. Let's study the entire package.
Right.
Because you tweak this and it affects this and you didn't realize it. And so now you got to fix that, and it just keeps rolling.
It's like taking a drug, there's side effects.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It
Always,
cures one thing, it
always.
causes 10 other problems.
You know why abatements were first created, don't you? Tax rates were too high.
That very well
That's
may have been. I
exactly
mean,
why
I've
they
been
were
doing
created.
tax abatements for
They was too high.
since the 80s.
Yeah, they were too high. It's a
But-
simple math. That's why
With
it
that
was
being
created.
said, we've created a few things here in DeKalb County that we didn't have before that we're now doing. Number one, we do have a tax abatement committee from the council that is reviewing these. we finally have some way to objectively look at each one of these tax rates, or each one of these projects, and we have the ability to manipulate them. We have started, since I've been on the council, we actually go out and review personally each one of these tax abatement locations to look and make sure that what we're given the tax abatement for is still there, is still being utilized.
When I was on council.
Which, we didn't have before. And Anton has been essential in that. He's been essential in getting our paperwork from all these different companies in here too on time, rather than late. Because we've had this happen twice, where people failed to turn their paperwork in.
Right.
And we denied them their tax abatement, for their tax phase-in for that particular year, because they didn't turn it in. We had another company that forgot different accounting systems and stuff that they had. They had to come back twice and argue to get theirs and present evidence as to how, it was just inadvertent. They didn't intentionally forget it, and we did give them their tax abatement, but
I agree. Carla and I, in our office, we rely on Anton a lot to help us get all of that information together and make sure that we're understanding, so that our tax abatement committee has the tools they need when they're making decisions to present to the full council.
You can make a very good argument to do away with tax abatements at the state level. And maybe Senator Holman's committee will suggest that, but to do it unilaterally and say, well, we're not going to do it in DeKalb County and the rest of the state can, seems to be pretty damaging. I mean,
we would lose, and there
for us.
are some other places. Butler is one of the few places that I'm aware of that's using tax abatement for residential.
Yeah.
They're needing housing over there, and so they have a program to where they can build new houses and get I think it's a 3-year. Don't hold me to that. We'd have to talk to Mayor Hartman about that.
Can you do that on real property?
Yeah.
I thought it was personal property only.
No. That's the other issue. I mean, I don't think anybody would debate too much the tax phase-in on the real property, because that generally is here, it's fixed. Everybody worries about the tax abatement on personal property because you can give it for that piece of machine, and that company can up and take that machine somewhere else.
Right.
So they're always a little suspicious about that. But the real property is not the big issue.
Mobile home,
People
like-
just don't debate that one too much. But,
We don't have a lot of real property, but we have a couple.
Yeah, and actually, there is a bill in the legislature right now that we're working very hard to get amended, because they're talking about doing TIF districts for residential, which is going to cause the counties a little bit of a problem. So.
A lot of heartburn.
But if it passes, we have to work with and live with whatever they bring before us. Those are the tools we got.
That's the problem, is that we talk about home rule, we talk about, and we have to play the cards we're dealt with. And I understand Bill's point, I understand some Mike's point. My thing is, I just, with this personal property, I just think it would be better, whether it's the solar people or whoever, to walk in and say, hey, we all pay the same. There's no one advantage to go to this county or not, and let the county, through its economic development, it's better housing, it's better schools, it's better cities. We want to be in Auburn. We want to be in Spencerville. We want to be here because of this county. That's what I'd like to see, is the state just say, this is the rate, everyone pays it, there's no exemptions, we're done. But I get what you're saying, that we got to pay by the rules that are sent to us. And it's
and they
unfortunate.
can't, and we're getting far away from what I was trying to tell you.
Right.
We're far away from doing away with personal property tax. And I'll tell you why.
30%.
It's 33% of our budget here in DeKalb County. There's a school system in Howard County that it's 70% of their budget.
Really?
70%. You cannot wipe out 70% of their tax income and expect that school system to survive.
How did they get to that point?
I don't know.
I'm just curious
you're heavily in industry down there, so that's it, and they just got a new industry.
Don't our schools get most of their funding now from the state?
Per student, but a lot of the facility stuff is all
Property
from
tax.
property.
I know property, but yeah, the state,
Yeah.
does the state handles all the wages and
Yeah,
such?
well,
now, don't they?
now, but then they're gonna do something like they made a big deal out of giving more per student. But now they also said you have to pay for textbooks out of that, and we're not giving you any additional money.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they gave away and they took away all in the same swipe.
Yeah.
So, but bottom line, there are only two official governments: the federal government and the state government. We are only here at the desire of the state government. The minute we start doing things that they don't like, DeKalb County doesn't exist because they will say, you're out of here. So we have to play with the rules.
Okay.
All right? Now, sorry, I didn't even mean to take your platform there, Anton.
Oh.
Okay. I think we're down to the contract. Unless there's other comments anybody wants to make.
All commented out.
I am too.
Make a motion, we approve the contract. Was the combined fee?
105,000.
I'll second.
A motion and a second. Any additional comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed say nay. I'm a nay. Anything else? Miscellaneous?
Thank you.
Bill, I have an interest of being on this board if, I know Mike expressed interest. I'm not on too many boards. I'd like to grab that position if it's
I'd
offered
like
to
to
me.
see the workload spread out a little bit, so yes. So be it.
Well, I think we better do a motion.
What board are you guys talking about?
The Anton's
Yeah,
board.
no,
on-
Oh.
Partnership.
Okay,
Do we need a motion for that?
I would.
Think so? Be
Okay.
an official appointment from the county commissioners.
I don't want to make my own appointment, so someone else have to make the motion.
I'll make the motion. Todd's on the redevelopment partnership,
Economic Development Partnership.
economic development
I'll second.
partnership.
He's
All
second.
those in favor signify by saying aye.
I will vote
Aye.
myself, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. Okay, that's done. What you got else?
Meet on the highway department, we've talked about that. Looks like we handled the funding as far as using the lighted tax. Those were my big concerns.
I went to the Woods Land
yeah.
Lakes meeting last week. And I got some information. Basically, they are a not-for-profit organization. They do not buy, they are land preservation, woods, lands, and lake preservation, but mainly, their main focus is farmland. They want to preserve the farmland for agriculture use only. And they do not buy it, though. They do a easement.
These
do
are the
an
folks that
easement
do the
agreement.
easement, okay, all right.
Yeah. And they pay so much, and it's negotiated, I think, as far as the amount is concerned. Sometimes folks will even donate part of that easement if they want to see their property conserved. They're asking for somebody from DeKalb County on the board. I'm not interested. As far as time, I just don't think I want to dedicate that time to that. Too much going on here. Yeah, anybody else interested? Or we could ask a private citizen too.
I'm just not real hip on their organization, I guess. I read what they do, and I understand that the farmer may want it preserved, and he's gonna give it to their kids, and they're gonna make housing development out of it or whatever, but you know what? I don't like easements that when they have no ownership, yet they tell you what you can do with your land, and you enter a contract with not real sound mind about that, and let's face it, what if that farmland's worth $50 million 10 years later, and you signed an easement, and I read their contract, it says there's really no way out of this except for a special exception.
Yeah.
And it's almost communistic to me. I'm just not a favor of it. I understand why they'd want to do it.
Yeah. And it's
An owner
voluntary,
of
it's all
farmland, but-
donation, you know, they take, it's all
Yeah,
by donation, but, you know, it's,
I just don't like it.
I don't know. Step to the mic.
Who are you?
Do we know you? Yeah, do we know him?
Lynn Reinhardt, 4224 County Road 71 in Butler. And just hearing this conversation, it just appears a little ironic from other conversations that we're hearing in DeKalb County about the need to protect farmland. And here we have a program in the area, and you look at it as not being worthwhile. I just find that.
I didn't say it's worthwhile. If I owned land, I wouldn't let someone put an easement on it that relinquishes my control of the land. That I don't understand why I would want to do that, because things could change in the future and you're locked into it. But I'm all for preserving the land, don't get me wrong, but
Okay.
to me, the owner of the land ought to preserve his land or
That's
sell
what
it
he,
off.
That's
sell it off.
That's whose decision it is. It is the landowners.
Oh, yeah, and if they want to enter
that
it,
way. So
I just don't want to be a part of the board.
It's not communistic when the landowner has the choice
I understand.
whether they want to enter into such an agreement or not.
If they want to do it, go ahead. I'm just saying I don't want to be a part of that process because it's not my land. You go ahead and do it, but I don't want to support it with taxpayer dollars.
I didn't understand that there was any call for taxpayer dollars.
Right, but if they would ask in the future, hey, they operate off of donations, we give donations to places. I just don't want any part of the board. I don't want any part of any of it. If they want to make an agreement with someone, go ahead, but I don't want to be drawn into it.
Yeah. Were you interested in being on the board?
I would have to explore that to make a decision that way. So it's not something, I mean, I had no idea that any discussion of this was going to come up today, but sitting back there and hearing what was being shared and said, I thought it was important that you made sure that you were looking at the whole picture.
No, it'd just be like, let's say you have your farm and you want it to always be a farm. And your kids have already said, hey, I'll sell that off to a housing. So if you really want to do that and you want to enter that agreement, that's fine. Just remember that agreement is binding and it's unchangeable. So if that property is worth a whole bunch of money and your family needs the money, I'm sorry, but you entered this agreement, we're not going to let you sell it. It has to be fine. Just so people understand what they're getting into, and I just don't want to be a part of that. I don't want to advocate for it or against it. Let you do what you want with your land. I don't want to be a part of it, though. It's interesting.
There you go. There's some,
Get on the board.
I hadn't heard about it.
I mean-
No, I was on the DeKalb County Soil and Water Conservation Board, I
Were you?
believe, at the time when this Woods, Lands, and Lakes was originally began that way.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing that was probably.
Oh, yeah.
So it's nothing new.
Yeah.
yeah, if you're interested, look it over, go online.
Get on there.
And go over and introduce yourself
Okay.
and tell them that you're interested. And we can put you on that position. But I just feel like I've got too much here. I don't need another project. So I'm just full up. My plate's full. I can't even find my plate. Anything else? Anyone? Andrew, surely you got something.
are we doing this? Are we not ready?
I don't know that I don't know if everybody's had a chance to look at it.
Did you guys see the agreement to termination of the lease with the
Yes.
99-year lease? Are you guys ready to act on at least the agreement part?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
With the humane shelter, right?
right.
Correct.
right,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I just need a motion to approve that and for all of you to sign it.
How much are they paying us to break the lease early?
None. None.
Todd, you're funny.
I don't think at the beginning of this,
It's an
people
unlimited
realized.
lease, unlimited times a dollar. I think we need
Yeah.
$5 or $10 million here, don't we?
Well, let's see, well, but the issue is that I don't think anybody realized there was an actual official lease hanging out
Right.
there, and so.
We have to terminate the
Yes.
lease in order
It
to.
doesn't look like it was necessarily recorded, but if it exists, then we want to
Yeah.
deal with it, and the Humane
They're
Society agreed with that.
And they're anxious to get in there, so let's,
I met with Bruce Granich, and then I also met with, a little bit with, I believe it's Mr. Rotacap from the
Yeah.
flower shop.
yeah.
I'd make a motion that we sign the termination of lease with the Humane Society, Humane Shelter.
A motion and a second. Any additional comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, the same. Motion carries. We all get to sign.
Yep, and that is all I have. I didn't have anything else.
Anything else, Andrew?
That's all I would have, except to say that there'll be a resolution for the, which maybe we can put on the agenda for
Well, I
next
have
week, I
it
think.
all, I have everything here, I just didn't know.
I think we ought to have it on the agenda before it's all voted.
Okay. So yeah, I can put
Any
that all on
advertising that
for
you-
next year,
Yeah.
or for next meeting, yep. Yep.
Okay. Are we done?
Lisa's a pretty good discount.
Last call. Last call.
Is it 3 a.m. already?
Adjourned. It's 3. Yeah.
If you guys, make sure you guys turn your mics off, please.